Hey, hey. We played video games yesterday. That was the most fun I've had in a while. That was fun with Dr. J. I enjoyed that. I know less people watch that than anything else, but I don't care. That was fun. I think we're gonna do it like maybe once a week or maybe slightly more often, but it's not gonna be like back to back or day after day or none of that. If you didn't get a chance to see it, it was fun.
What you think about when you're born into a fire? Let them burn it out. Sell them to the richest buyer. They wanna let the world decay. They tell us lies and fade away, fade away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. Listen up now, because we're never dropping out. Beat the odds, beat the big house. The brains are bigger than the doubt. We've been thinking for ourselves, never let the truth fade away. This is bigger than ourselves, we won't let the world burn away, burn away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. To blame, haters face the world's mistakes. Wake at the back of the pack.
Let me pause that music there. Okay, that's right. Hold on, I've got a pop up I gotta take care of. Hold on. All right, let's go. I think we're good now.
Hey daddies, it's me, the Linda Binda from TikTok. I wanted to make this video because I wanted to thank you for watching Cold Beer Confessionals with Will Bird. I think that's just incredible. I've watched a few episodes and I'm just like very intrigued. But you know what I'm most intrigued in is Big Daddy's meat stick. I heard that it's very thick, like a good old German sausage. You know, Linda and her coochie loves that. Oh, never mind. Let's not go there. Anyways, I hope you have a good show and enjoy it as you can. There's a lot of weird things that go on, especially when it comes from the realm of Linda Bindaland. So, enjoy the show. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Welcome, everybody. I am Alberta, and this is a Cold Beer Confessional. If you didn't see the show from last night, we had a lot of fun. Okay, we did. We played a game called RV There Yet. Me and Dr. J. We were trying to rescue Itsuko from China. We're not done playing it. We're gonna play it again. But I kind of explain, if you want to watch those future streams, watch the first one, because I kind of explained the premise of the game and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. We made it to like 3 or 4 checkpoints in. But it was incredibly fun. We had a good time. We'll probably do it like once a week or something until we're tired of it or beat it or something. But I had a lot of fun. It's basically you're in an RV that you have to repair and use winches and tools and stuff to drive around. And it's in a weird, like, very cartoon-esque style. All the characters look like Chubby Tim Pool, and I don't know, it's pretty fun. So check that video out. That was last night's show, and we got the holidays and stuff coming up, but after the holidays, we'll probably play another round. It was a lot of fun. So thank you guys if you watched it, and if you didn't, go back and watch it. It was, we had fun doing it. Anyways, thank you guys for joining us. Like I said, this is Cold Beer Confessional. If you want to support the show, do that at the Just Quick Tools link. I got a better link. I don't like saying that. It doesn't roll off the tongue. It's the link I just put in the chat where you can pick a way to support the show, help pay the bills around here. That'd be great. We'd appreciate that. Amazon package delivered. Uh-oh. I have to go grab my Amazon package. Anyways, yeah, thank you guys for hanging out with us, showing up tonight. We got a couple things to go over, I guess. I'm not as well prepared as I should be, but we'll get through it. I did see Trump is very upset. Well, I'm assuming he's very upset. We're going to go check his Truth Social and see what he says. Not only did the Comey case get thrown out today, but the Letitia James case got thrown out today again, or together with the Comey case. Basically because the insurance attorney that Trump just tried to stick in there as a state attorney in Virginia, improperly, she doesn't have the power to even bring these. So they threw out both cases, and I'm sure there's going to be other cases underneath her that are going to be thrown out. But he just stuck her in there because the other guy wouldn't do it. So they threw out the Comey's case is getting thrown out anyways. I've been looking into Letitia James' case. I think it's going to be thrown out as well because they're basically saying that we've seen some shorter videos on it, but they're basically saying that she got a better rate on her mortgage because she claimed this was her primary residence or a residence of hers, and then she rented it out. So you can't use this lower rate that's for your residence if it's a rental property. But it seems like she rented it out to a family member, and the family members only paid like rent a couple times. Not like a monthly rent, not like a monthly rent for years, not like a lease. Like the person's only paid a very few amount of times, which is allowed, right? Especially with it already being a family member. It would be different if it was just a random stranger that she put in there and they signed like a year-long lease and started living there and paying direct rent. Then maybe she's kind of violated this law that's hardly ever pursued, right? Tons of people. It's only because of who she is and because Trump doesn't like her because she brought charges against Trump. Tons of people finance and get a personal use rate and then put renters into places. It just happens all the fucking time. Now, if the bank finds out about it, they might say, hey, you can't do that. We're changing your rate and prorating it from the beginning of the loan. But it still happens all the fucking time. So it's technically against the rules, right? Technically illegal because basically you're lying about a statement on to secure financing. But almost always the defense, every case I've looked up where the banks actually went after somebody and did this or has tried to get it prosecuted, the defense has always been, well, when I financed it, it was my home. But then we found a different home or I had to move or my job, I want to be closer to work or my family split up and then we started renting it and it almost always thrown out. So it's such a weird thing to go after her. Like if you're going to go after her, get something big, something that'll stick, something that's crazy that people are like, oh my God, I can't believe she did that. Not, well, she told us this is her personal home and actually her niece was living there or whoever the relative is. I can't remember. It's very weird. I don't know what this is. It says, I disagree with Green, but she's nice.
All right, Tim Burchett weighed in.
Do you think that there's room in the party for members who don't agree with the president on everything?
Absolutely fucking not. They're going to say yes, but absolutely fucking not. You have to be pro-Trump all the fucking time. You can never disagree. You can never question. You can never get off the script.
There's always room, man. That's the difference between us and the Democrats. They use the, as I like to say, the stick.
That's the difference between us. Some of the Democrats want fucking pure, unfiltered socialism. And other ones are just like, yeah, corporate lobbies. Like, what do you mean?
The carrot. They reward you with the carrot or they beat you over the head with the stick. And that's why they they always vote in unison and they never would allow a bill up until they had all their people whipped into place or bought off legally, I guess, or whichever way they do it. They do it better behind closed doors and we don't. We're vocal and I think that's part of our strength. People are going to argue or they're going to have differences, but I mean, President Trump's the biggest dog in the pound, ma'am. And you can take him on if you want, but the results are always the same.
I think
you can take him on if you want, but the results are always the same. And by take him on, what they mean is disagree with him, and he will destroy you. But also, there's room in the party for people that disagree with Trump. What your own statements contradict your previous statements. Can you disagree with Trump? Absolutely. But if you do that, he's going to take you down, no matter what.
He fell in love with being on CNN and The View and getting that embrace from people that
Fox News has turned so quick, so Trump won't be mad at them and he'll still call in once a week. They're like, I can't believe she went to The View and she's basically a leftist lunatic now.
Normally spent a lot of time ripping her. Yeah, but they don't care.
They don't care. Carolyn Levitt, we know that America's still hurting, 40-year high inflation. I wanted to see if he spoke on the Comey stuff. Women for Trump. He shared a bunch of QAnon stuff and the retards came fucking screaming, dude. Saying, oh, you don't think I think this might be some of these. You don't think that Q is real? Just wait till you see this. Hold on, I'll show. Obliterate the deep state. He shared a bunch of QAnon memes, basically. Time to obliterate the deep state. Nothing can stop what is coming. See the memes he's sharing? Like, I think it's because he's doing poorly and he's trying to at least sew up that segment. At least the Q-tards will come back and worship him. You know what I mean? Has more successful executive experience in his pinky toes than Obama has gained in his entire presidency. What is this one? Same caption. Oh, I can't play another one. A True Social fucking sucks. But anyways. What happened to Senator Rand Paul? He was never great, but he went really bad. I got him elected twice in the great Commonwealth of Kentucky, but he just never votes positively for the Republican Party. You're telling me that Rand Paul's not a Republican? He's a nasty little guy, Liddle. Little guy, much like Congressman Thomas Massey, a.k.a. Rand Paul Jr., also of Kentucky, which I won 3 times in massive landslides. A sick wacko who refuses to vote for a great Republican Party, MAGA or America First. It's really weird. These are staunch Republicans. Traditional more Republican than Trump will ever be. That is the president. I don't think he did post on it. Tariffs. Is it really possible that big progress is being made in the peace talks between Russia and Ukraine? So apparently, one of Trump's aides coached Putin in how to manipulate Trump. Oh, I was still looking for those memes, wasn't I? Hold on. I know it's an order, but I think we should all think about this before we attack. I think that is unlawful. Well, that's actually how it's supposed to work, but whatever. Here they are. So Spiritual Street Fighter 17, of course, like Scott McKay, right? Patriot Street Fighter. This is Spiritual Street Fighter. Remember Your Oath, and it's got him wearing an American flag cape, and it's like a Marvel, like he's a superhero. Then we get this TikTok, and they tag him in that post. He shares that one. Then we get this, time to obliterate the deep state, do it Q. And this person was on Twitter. I commented on it. I wonder if they ever responded. This person was on Twitter bragging like, oh, you guys say QAnon isn't real, but look right here. Look what's going on here. He's sharing these memes. Nothing can stop what is coming. Fucking retards, dude. That's not it. I was hoping somebody commented below it while I was talking shit or liked it or something, so at least show up. Oh, it'll probably be under my replies. Hold on. They're using this as a springboard to say, oh, you guys thought Q was off? And now they're saying that Marjorie Taylor Greene is just playing a part, that this was all in the script, that she had to do this, that here it is. Now that it's done, we can move on to the next part, which are arrests. I'll show you a Facebook group I'm a part of too. So it says, for all you who this is from Julie Donuts. God provides, we win. Love smileys on Truth Social. Trump won 2020 and it's not over yet. In all caps. It says, for all of you who keep saying Q is fake and a psyop and we are Q-tards, this is from your president. And of course it shows these retweets. The ones that I just read to you. And someone says, so Trump posts memes like he has been doing for years, so that makes it true? Come the fuck on. You're delusional, and shame on you for continuing to string people along with your ridiculous nonsense. They say, save this post, then apologize, because it's all coming true now. It's all going to, here it comes. 3 in a row. We have it all, of course. People want microwave justice for centuries-old crimes and agendas. President Trump posted 4 of my memes. This is the person who made them, Spiritual Street Fighter 17. We've been waiting for 8 years. Maybe no one is coming to save us. It's a military operation. Who says the timing but the plan and God? If it's a military operation, how the fuck is God setting the timing? All posted back to back. I put, we also know Trump is retarded and desperate for support currently. So I'm part of this Facebook group. Let me go show it to you. And I don't even know how I got in there, but I'm in there now. It's called We Trust and Believe in the Plan or something like that. Hold on. We trust and believe in the plan. And I fucking trolled these people hard. I don't know if they don't know how to boot me or what, but this is from 3 hours ago. Confirmed. Med beds on the hospital ship Comfort just recorded the 1,000th full healing. A little girl from the Antarctic rescue who hadn't spoken in 8 years just asked for her mommy. Like, they just make up this weird, like, Q porn to make themselves feel good. Or so. It's, like, so fucking weird. Like, what would be the benefit of even making that shit up? Just heard from 3 confirmations that Gates and Epstein had a fling back in the day. You read that correct, my good people. People can't hide it, deny it, or downplay it, but truth always finds its way to the surface. And when multiple independent confirmations lined up, that's no coincidence. That's clarity. At the end of the day, what's done in the dark eventually walks into the light. And once you know the truth, you can finally move on with move with confidence, peace, and direction. Discernment always wins. Then they got these weird AI videos. Like, this is what it's all about. Rescuing our children, 7+ million. I saw one the other day that I'm like, there's no way this happened. It was about hunting people. Hold on, I'll see if I can find it. Oprah Winfrey's private jet was at Epstein's Island 11 times. Whatever happened to all those girls that got kidnapped from her school in Africa? Well, that didn't happen, so. Did you know the Red Cross was owned by the Rothschilds? Bet you didn't. Did you know the Red Cross was child trafficking, organ trafficking, adrenochrome, and money laundering? No, because it didn't happen. Yes, I heard that. Bad thing to be in. I wanted to share this to see if I can get your opinions on what he's saying will happen, since it's different from what others are talking about. Maybe I can see some of what he's saying further down the road, but I can't see us making this huge leap right away. Thoughts? And it says, remember, worldwide 3D internet was all part of your 8th demonic reset. We switched it around since 2016 in public favor to help raise the human consciousness for the huge, huge main event to come. Do not worry about time. We are in the thick of the process now. Nothing is what W-O-T, it seems. And if it seems, it's good. Totally parasitic mindset control. The least beneficial is financial, medbed, QFS believers. You will never, ever see this. Listen, no money is needed where you're going. Nothing to buy. Love and kindness, empathy is all you need. All truther funds go to keeping FEMA camps and secret 15-minute cities up and going so they can control your last reset better. The most horrific reset of all. But no, us other worlds are here. Let's take full advantage of it. This person doesn't even speak English as their first language, guaranteed. We came to save children and destroy finance system. Do you honestly think the amount of it coming in and out of here after a main event going to be involved in finance? Bullshit. Wake your arses up. I told you, QFS, RV, mugs. It's all gone. We used it all saving this world. Gassara and Nasara funds, all gone. All the pure gold, gone. We sprayed it on all of you the last 7 years. I'm not joking. It's the truth. Trump or Q never mentioned this shit. That's why the liars, CGI shit. Keep the money coming in. XXXX, the sick fucks. Been listening to his Rumble channel for 3 years. I believe he knows what he's saying. He has lots of videos explaining past, present, future, amongst a ton more of detailed info. So somebody believes him. Your DNA is so uniquely divine that there are people engineering food designed to change its genetics. And they got a picture of Bill Gates. I'm still alive, bitches. What y'all think? Obamacare premiums went up, coverage went down, and insurance companies got filthy rich. By Paul Gosar, representative. It's not true, but there you go. Derek Johnson, they're sharing Derek Johnson posts in here. If you think or believe that this is all real time and this post by PDJT yesterday with this article today is all a coincidence, I've got a polar bear to sell you in Jamaica. And it says something about if your justice system has been corrupted, how do you bypass the corruption? Military tribunals. That's not true. We don't do that. Sorry for the hiccup. Judge tosses the indictment against James and Comey, what we were talking about earlier, and we're going to be talking about, and Letitia James and James Comey. So Derek Johnson is saying, oh, they had to throw it out because the military tribunals are what's going to do it. Got it. California rattled by rapid succession of earthquakes with shaking felt hundreds of miles from epicenter. And someone says, rapid succession of earthquakes struck California with shaking felt hundreds of miles from epicenter. They got this weird picture that's got babies and meat carcasses and I don't know what the fuck half this shit is. We are really at the end of this movie. The part is guaranteed. Something I want to share with all of you. A lot of shocking headlines we've been seeing lately weren't random at all. They were meant to expose just how deep the corruption really went over the past few centuries. None of this was by accident, and trust me, when everything comes full circle and full disclosure finally hits, every single one of us will understand why it took this long. The timing, the delays, the layers, it all makes sense. Stay grounded and ready. We're almost there. This guy is a local football coach, like a high school football coach. He disappeared, but he may also be under investigation, but that's a different story. How many coincidences before it's mathematically impossible that things are blue and white? God, these people are fucking crazy. Let me see if I can find the one I was talking about. Mandelson's Revenge, how Britain's new ambassador plans to destroy Trump's economic revolution. Oh, God, what is this? Restored, repeat, but important. Restored Republic on Monday, 24th November 2025 at 6 p.m. Eastern. On the nose, dusk takedown dispatch from undisclosed location. QFS rainbow currency liquidity just hit 100%. Global saturation. Every legacy bank account on Earth is now either gold-backed with rainbow currency or marked for seizure in the next 18 hours. It must not have worked, guys. It must not have worked. No planes hit the Twin Towers. It was controlled demolition. The people that did 9/11 brought us the virus and the bioweapons and jabs from Steve-O. Do not pay anyone to help you set up your QFS account. There's a huge illegal, I guess it's a scam. I don't know. If I made a program, I should have done this. I should have started this fucking 10 years ago. If I made a program called the QFS Redemption Center, and I charged you, I made it incredibly, accounts are free. Accounts are free. But it's incredibly hard to set up an account. There's like fucking 200 steps, right, to verify and set up the account. And it's a real thing. You can access it, you can log on, and maybe you can even chat to people on there. If I made a website like that, and then I charged you to set up accounts, and I said, yeah, it's the QFS, I'm not lying, would that technically be a scam? Like, I never said, like, this is where you get your money, this is where you get, this is the QFS system that the government asked me to, that I was asked to set up. I can't say the government. Is that technically a scam? But there's big money with people that are helping people set up their QFS. All they're doing is helping them set up a crypto wallet on a certain marketplace, and they're charging them hundreds of dollars to set it up. Ukraine just agreed to the terms of the peace deal. Trump did the impossible. President Trump, that can't be true. Hold on. U.S. and Russia hold new talks as Ukraine hopes to finalize a peace deal. It says they agreed to a peace proposal with minor details to settle. So, no. Anyways, sometimes a good movie. There was one I really wanted to show you about hunting people. From my team member. So somebody that works for Trump is what this person's saying. from somebody I know that works with Trump. After President Trump's Thanksgiving announcement about the new gold-backed currency, the plan is for it to go fully operational on December 10th. That's the timeline as it stands right now. Big changes are lining up quickly. Gitmo's new gallows are finished. The Epstein client list, Wave 5, just dropped internally. 1,400 names, video proof, and signed confessions. Where's the one about hunting people that I was making so much fun of? Let me see. I can search, right? Hold on. Here you go. If you're bothered by the Epstein list, wait until you find out about their hunting parties, as if they're hunting humans, okay? And then this is the one that made me laugh. Angela Taylor Payne says, that made me sick to hear about them. There was a model from Georgia, like a male model from Georgia. He was a young black guy. They ran him naked through the woods. They killed him, and I can't say anymore. So you personally know Angela Taylor Payne. You know of a black male model that was abducted and hunted naked on a private island, and you're like, I can't say. Did you report it to the police, or you just holding that all in? Seems pretty crazy, no? They're hunting people and you know about no fucking y'all are so stupid. These are literal movies. That's why they show it so much in Hollywood. Has anyone noticed in a few movies there's always someone running in the woods? Of course, not Blaken, just movies. Pay attention. Obviously can't confirm. These people are fucking lunatics. There was a post that I quoted on that was from like 5 months ago, and they're like, this is it. This is the time. It's happening now. Recent activity. Let's do that. It was an old post that for some reason the storm has reached its crescendo. That was from November 20th. I'm pretty sure I commented on it earlier today and was like, well, I guess you guys missed this prediction. They never go back and look at all these times that they said, oh, it's going to happen within the next 24 hours, 48 hours, 3 days, whatever. They never go back and are like, oh, well, we've missed 7,000 predictions. So I'm sure it's going to work out now, huh? So listen, President Trump has not only called for the death penalty for those guilty of sedition and treason, he's also called for it for pedophiles and sex traffickers. I don't even think this is a real post, but it says, got to do something about these missing children grabbed by the perverts. Too many incidents, fast trial death penalty. But then someone says, well, for those suffering from TDS, would Trump call for his own death if he was guilty? Yeah, probably. Yeah, fucking probably. God damn, these people are so fucking stupid. 13 hours ago. Here's one. Unless you're the king, you're not allowed to touch the Saudi prince. Unless you're the king, it shows Trump shaking hands with the Saudi prince. And it says, unless you're the king, you're not allowed to touch the Saudi prince. Let's look at those comments, shall we? Who commented this? Oh, that's me? Damn. Damn. God damn it. Look at that. Who keeps throwing these pictures in the comments? Oh, more from me. More from me. I guess George Bush was the king. It's almost like y'all are just making up shit to keep believing the same nonsense. Damn. Wild there. Who are these fucking lunatics, dude? I just don't get it. Sometimes I don't get, how can they keep believing this shit? Just had an update phone call with Juan O'Savin. Couldn't believe some of the things we discussed. Almost eerie. We are definitely in the window, folks. When you hear of more than one congressman or one woman falling ill or suddenly dying, it's go time. That's all I can say for now. Just heard a video of Juan and Space Shot. He used the Q reference, but didn't say it exactly the same way. He said 6 a.m. can be dangerous. He said something about the 29th day of the month and the goddess of chaos, but not exactly sure what he was implying might happen. There's talk of a potential for a winter storm in the area on that day, but I doubt that's what he's referring to. Might as well be. I mean, like, you can just make it up. So it might as well be the storm and everything else he's referring to. Who cares? We are being prepped for military tribunals. I don't know. I don't. And people get so many views and likes and comments. There's so many people that are so deep down in it's scary, honestly. Like, the alternate reality they've created for themselves is just insane. How deep, and the things that they'll move around in their lives and change this and stop believing that and then suddenly believe this different thing. Like, it's just wild. And they'll do complete 180s. Like, they'll believe one thing with all their fucking heart, no matter what, this has happened. And then suddenly they'll be like, nope, that was a false flag. And instead it's going to do this. Like, what the fuck is going on? Hold on just a second. Let's see here. Hold on, I'm working on it. What? That made me gag a little bit. Sorry. Hold on. I just gagged. I gagged just a little bit. Sorry, I was reading something I'm about to read to you, but I want the full thing. Hold on. Why can't I just find the full fucking thing? Here's some of the quotes from it. All right, here we go. Get ready. Put on your panty suspenders because they're going to be dropping. I mean to squeeze your cheeks, to force open your mouth. I am a river. You are my canyon. I mean to flow through you. I mean to subdue you and tame you, my love. Mm. 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 Just let that sit on the brain for a minute. Your open mouth is awaiting my harvest. Drink from me, love. Your open mouth is awaiting my harvest. Drink from me, love. I mean to squeeze your cheeks and force open your mouth. I'll hold your nose as you look up at me to encourage you to swallow. Don't spill a drop. I'm a river. You are my canyon. I mean to flow through you. I mean to subdue and tame you, my love. God damn, that's disgusting. That's nasty as fuck, dude. Your open mouth awaiting my harvest. What do you think he means by harvest, chat? Let's break this down. What do you think he means by your open mouth is awaiting my harvest? Soybeans, you think? Drink from me, love. I mean to squeeze your cheeks and force open your mouth and hold your, I'm running out of fingers. Hold your nose. Is that beautiful, chat? You like semen beat around your bush? I don't even know what that means. I mean to squeeze your cheeks, to force open your mouth. I'll hold your nose as you look up at me to encourage you to swallow. Don't spill a drop. I am a river. You are my canyon. I mean to flow through you. I mean to subdue and tame you, my love. Can you imagine that in RFK's voice? Like a normal human voice that's been run through a fucking giant industrial fan and then microwaved on high for 10 minutes? Ryan Upchurch was live today. Oh, man, that was bad. Oof. Oof. thrown out.
Sure, we'll be taking all available legal action, including an immediate appeal to hold Letitia James and James Comey accountable for their unlawful conduct.
James Comey's statute of limitations is up.
Sure,
That's how they did it the first time. Federal judge, Letitia James, case dismissed by federal judge James Comey and Letitia James. Let's try this one, CNN.
This is big. We have learned that the Justice Department's case against former FBI Director Jim Comey and the New York Attorney General.
Now, again, this is not on the merits of the case. This isn't saying it's a good case, it's a bad case. They had evidence, they didn't have evidence. They could have convicted. This is, hey, you didn't have the power to bring these fucking cases.
Have both been dismissed. CNN's Caitlin Polance is covering this. Caitlin, okay, what happened here? I don't know which case you want to take first.
Well, they both are being dismissed, and for essentially the same reason that Lindsay Halligan, the Eastern District of Virginia interim U.S. attorney sent there by Donald Trump, not Senate confirmed, that she doesn't have the power. What the judge here has found, this is Judge Cameron Curry from South Carolina. She came into the district, heard arguments from both of the lawyers on these cases against Lindsay Halligan's role. They argued that she didn't have the power because she wasn't Senate confirmed, and thus these indictments.
I think she came from South Carolina because she's like out of the area, no bias kind of deal.
Are invalid. The judge is agreeing with that. Judge Curry is saying that the Attorney General's attempt to install Ms. Halligan as interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia was invalid, and because Ms. Halligan had no lawful authority to present the indictment, James Comey.
I don't know if you guys remember this, but they put her as the assistant, and then they tried to put her as the attorney, the state attorney. She wasn't confirmed, her time ran out. Then they put her as the assistant and then fired the sitting, so that made her the attorney again. And still not confirmed.
Comey's motion is granted. The indictment is
No, that was the New Jersey one. Is that the one I'm thinking about?
Missed. Now, the judge does mention that this is without prejudice. So in legal speak, that means that it could be brought back by another prosecutor in the Eastern District of Virginia if they took it through the grand jury again. But everything Lindsay Halligan did at the end of September, beginning of October, and since then, this judge is saying she couldn't have done that. She didn't have the authority. She was not confirmed by Congress, by the U.S. Senate as the Eastern District of Virginia's U.S. attorney. And thus, the president went out of his bounds, and the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, also overstepped her bounds in sending Lindsay Halligan into this district to get these indictments against both Comey and James.
Can I raise a question with Comey? I know that she had made, at least the judge pointed out, a serious error when it came to the grand jury. So what we're saying now is even that mistake that everyone had been talking about, it's moot, because essentially what I'm hearing you say is they're saying she shouldn't have been in the job in the first place.
It may be moot, yes. We still are waiting to see if Judge Nachmanoff, the presiding judge over this case, what he does. He hasn't actually entered into the record yet that the cases are dismissed. We just have this other order from the judge saying that the indictment against James should be dismissed, the indictment against Comey should be dismissed. We'll see what this other judge does now with that. But this isn't about, Audie, what you are bringing up, what Lindsay Halligan may have done with the grand jury in getting the indictment of James Comey through to the magistrate judge after they had voted down one of the charges against Comey and only secured 2 charges against him. There was that big hiccup, but it isn't what's being addressed here. This is solely about, did the Department of Justice formally take the pains it needed to get someone into the position of U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia? And this judge, Judge Curry, she says they did not. And so everything that interim U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan has done, it's invalid at this
Does this mean this is done? Can these charges come back?
Here's what it says. Mr. Comey now moves to dismiss the indictment on the grounds that Ms. Halligan, the sole prosecutor who presented the case to the grand jury, was unlawfully appointed in violation of 28 U.S.C. 546 and the Constitution's appointment clause. As explained below, I agree with Mr. Comey and that the Attorney General's attempt to install Ms. Halligan as an interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia was invalid, and because Ms. Halligan had no lawful authority to present the indictment, I will grant Mr. Comey's motion to dismiss the indictment without prejudice. The appointment clause prescribes the exclusive means of appointing officers of the United States. The text of the clause contemplates 2 types of officers, principal and inferior officers. Principal officers must be appointed by the president with advice and consent of the Senate. The same process is also the default manner of appointment for inferior officers. But the framers recognized that requiring all officers of the federal government to run the gauntlet of presidential nomination and Senate confirmation would prove administratively unworkable. So, on one of the last days of the Constitutional Convention, they authorized an additional and streamlined method of appointment for inferior officers. So not top officers, but the one below them. In the final provision of the Appointments Clause, that provision, sometimes referred to as the Accepting Clause, permits Congress to law by vest the appointment of inferior officers in the president alone, in the courts of law, and or in the heads of departments. For the United States attorneys, Congress has preserved the constitutional default rule for presidential appointment and Senate confirmation. The president shall appoint by the party, and with the advice and consent of the Senate, a United States attorney for each judicial district. Congress has also established a mechanism set forth in 28 U.S.C. 546 for appointing interim U.S. attorneys when a vacancy arises. Section 546 essentially divides the responsibilities for making interim appointments between the Attorney General and the district courts. Oh, yeah, all those. Oh, that might be the New Jersey one. I don't want to say that again. It provides in full, except as provided in subsection B, the Attorney General may appoint a United States attorney for the district in which the office of the United States attorney is vacant. The Attorney General shall not appoint, as United States attorney, a person to whose appointment by the president to that office the Senate refused to give advice and consent. A person appointed as a United States attorney under this section may serve until the earlier of the qualification of a United States attorney for such district appointment by the president or the expiration of 120 days after the appointment by Attorney General under this section. If an appointment expires under subsection C2, the district court for such district may appoint a United States attorney to serve until the vacancy is filled. The order of appointment by the court shall be filled with the clerk of the court. On January 20th, Jessica Aber, who had been previously nominated by President Biden and confirmed by the Senate, resigned from her position as U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. The following day, the Attorney General appointed Eric Siebert as interim U.S. Attorney under 28 U.S.C. 546. Mr. Siebert's 120-day interim appointment was set to expire on May 21st, 2025. So on May 9th, the judges of the district exercised their authority under Section 546D to appoint Mr. Siebert to continue his role, effective on May 21st, when it expired. On September 19th, 2025, Mr. Siebert informed colleagues of his resignation. According to a news report, Mr. Siebert had recently expressed concerns to senior Department of Justice officials about the viability of pursuing charges against Mr. Comey and New York Attorney Letitia James. Attorney General Letitia James. Mr. Siebert's resignation came hours after President Trump told reporters at the White House he wanted Siebert out. The next day, President Trump posted and then later deleted the following message on social media. This was the text message he posted by accident. It says, Pam, I have reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially same old story as last time, all talk, no action. Nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adam Schiff, Letitia? They're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done. Then we almost put in a Democrat-supported U.S. attorney in Virginia with a really bad Republican past, a woke rhino who was never going to do his job. That's why two of the worst Democratic senators pushed him so hard. He even lied to the media and said he quit and that we had no case. No, I fired him, and there is a great case, and many lawyers and legal pundits say so. Lindsey Halligan is a really good lawyer and likes you a lot. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served. Now, President DJT. Now, he thought he was texting Pam Bondi, but he posted this, then deleted it. Less than 48 hours after President Trump's post on September 22nd, 2025, the Attorney General issued an order authorizing Lindsey Halligan to be the interim United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia during the vacancy in that office. That was a September 22nd order. Attorney General Order Number 6402, 2025. The September 22 order cites only 28 U.S.C. 546 as the basis for Miss Halligan's appointment. On September 25th, 2025, a grand jury sitting in the Eastern District of Virginia returned a 2-count indictment against Mr. Comey, charging him with making false statements within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1001 A2 and obstructing a congressional proceeding in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1505, ECF number 1. The charges stem from testimony Mr. Comey gave during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing in 2020. Let me explain this. Okay. Here's what happened. In 2017, a senator asked James Comey, have you ever given permission for a employee of the FBI, it's very important, an employee of the FBI, to leak information to an agency? He says no. That was like in 2017, I think. in 2020, I believe. I may have the dates wrong, but the story's accurate. He's brought back in front of Congress, and Ted Cruz asked him, have you ever given permission for anyone being the phrase here, anyone to be a leak to the media? And James Comey says, I don't know about so-and-so, because there's two people being questioned. He says, I don't know about the other guy, but I stand by the testimony I gave in 2017. What was the testimony he gave in 2017? That he had never authorized an employee to leak information to the media. Just because Ted Cruz asked him anybody and changed the question, not employee, anybody, you have to think about this, okay? They're all fucking lawyers. They're all fucking lawyers. You don't have, when given the freedom to answer a question however you want, we see it all the time with everybody that goes in front of Congress. When given the freedom, they're not saying you have to say yes, you have to answer yes or no. That's it, like a lie detector. When given the freedom to answer, these people are never going to perjure themselves, okay? Ted Cruz asked him, have you ever given permission for anybody to leak information to the media? If he would have said no, he would have been lying, because technically he did give some information that he wanted the media to know to the Columbia law professor, his personal lawyer. That's true. But he didn't answer no. He said, I stand by my previous testimony. His previous testimony was, I've never given an FBI agent, someone working at the FBI, permission to leak. I think, who covers this really well? Hold on. Give me just a second.
The clock is ticking, people. Redact, redact, redact. Oh my God.
That's kind of funny.
Find me something without his fucking name in it. Wait, what's this? It says Bubba. Who's Bubba? Bubba received oral pleasure from Cash, you fuck.
Who's the civics guy we always use? What's his name? This guy, Brian DC. He does something about Comey, I think. Give me just a second. They're all lawyers, okay? They know how to answer these questions. And I guarantee they're not going to perjure themselves. They will talk you around in circles before they perjure themselves. Why do you think that all of Trump's appointees never answer a fucking question? Never answer a question. Do you think, would you ever would you fire people that investigated Donald Trump at the FBI? I will uphold the standard that we use to hire and fire practices of members of the FBI. It's an excellent standard, and it's going to be upheld to the tops of the... they're all non-answers. So there's no way they're fucking lying.
Hey gang, this may be absolutely unnecessary.
Oh, this is way too far back. It's going to be one of these up here then. Give me just a second to go through them.
Well, Mr. Abrego Garcia said he would happily
hot off the presses, everybody.
Week before Thanksgiving is almost over, everybody.
I want to say he did a quick update.
3 total, I think. All right.
And then there was
if I publish a few more short videos. Hey gang. All right. I didn't do a morning report this morning because I had some.
He did a quick update and then a video the next
Back
day.
in the day.
Maybe that was it. Hold on.
Hey gang. All right. I didn't do a morning report this morning because I had some live court stuff to do today. But I want to update you on a couple of things real quick. So I'm here in my awesome t-shirt that you can get at the link below if you want to keep me going. I've also got a hoodie version and a ladies version in my TikTok shop, and as usual, my awesome coffee mug if you want to do that. All right, so first,
what I'm saying is Comey's definitely did not commit these crimes, no way, shape, or form, and he knew exactly how to get away with it and not answer. He didn't want to answer that question, so he said, "I stand by my testimony I gave before."
If you didn't listen to yesterday's morning report, go back and listen to the James Comey update, or this won't make a ton of sense. But today,
it would be like, okay, if someone asked me today, have you ever drank Mountain Dew? And my answer is no. And then I say, no, I've never drank Mountain Dew. I think sodas are horrible for you. They're disgusting. They're full of sugar. They're bad for your health, blah, 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 whatever. And then tomorrow someone asked me, have you ever drank soda? And I said, I stand by my testimony yesterday. My testimony yesterday was Mountain Dew. So I didn't answer the question, and I damn sure didn't lie about drinking soda.
Hearing, the government, the prosecution admitted that the grand jury did not review a copy of the final indictment that was actually signed by the grand jury foreperson and present the grand jury approved after deliberating over all. It's not really anything.
I don't think this is it.
Intentional. I've been a prosecutor. I made them in traffic court. In my, I've talked about it a whole preliminary injunction.
This is not it. So let me go. We'll go find it.
So with everything that's been going on in Chicago, the city of Chicago...
So, quick little story, everybody.
I don't care how your Tuesday's going, ain't nobody in this country walking on a softer cloud than one James Elizabeth Comey. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm Brino, and this is the Morning Report on the federal courts for November 18th, 2025. Double tap that screen, comment what's in your Morning Report mug this morning, and watch the first minute right now, even if you're coming back, so we hit the FYP. Cindy, Justin, Sly, and Lizzie, your packages are sent.
I think that Lindsay Halligan's going to be in trouble with the courts. If not, get some type of punishment from what she's doing.
Check out my shop or the link in my bio.
She should.
Ways to help me stay sustainable. All right, I'm going to fly through a couple cases real quick so we can do kind of a dive into Comey, because there's just no way to get through it quickly, and I think it'll be worth the trip. All right, I'm going to start with New York v. Trump. This is going to sound really familiar, like you've heard this story over and over again, but there's one really big note to take away from this. I'll get there in a second. Back in January when...
What's up, Q Idiot? Thanks for joining us, man. Welcome, welcome. Did you watch us play the RV game yesterday?
The administration first started cutting funding.
It was so much fun.
Programs due to woke ideology and Marxism and transgenderism and all this scary stuff. And I'm quoting those things, by the way. I'm not being glib. 22 states sued to stop them, in this case from blocking things like FEMA funding. And there was a typical back and forth. TROs, stays, preliminary injunctions. The Supreme Court did not weigh in on this one, but the First Circuit Court distinguished this case from those ones being sent to the Court of Federal Claims because these are direct congressional appropriations to states, not contracts or grants by any means. And back in April, one of the motions was appealed. Today, it will finally be heard by the First Circuit Court of Appeals. The takeaway I wanted you guys to get is that when people keep talking about how the Supreme Court has just let the administration get away with anything they want, and I keep saying nothing has really happened yet, this is what I'm talking about. We are finally getting something to happen. A substantive question is finally making it to a court. This is just how long it takes. So I wanted you to have that timing in your head. Sometimes things take from April to November to actually make it to court. That's why I was a little bit less worried about some of the things happening over the summer, because I knew there hadn't been enough time for any of the courts to really consider real questions. So that's today in the First Circuit. I will let you know if anything exciting happens. Okay. Next, yesterday the Supreme Court put out its list of cases that it would and would not be taking, and there are a couple of interesting ones. First, the court rejected a writ of cert in Cambridge Christian School v. Florida High School Athletic Association, where two private Christian schools wanted to pray over the loudspeaker before a football game that was organized by a state athletic association. And the state organization said basically anything that comes out of that loudspeaker is the state speaking, and the state's not allowed to say a prayer. This state speech argument sort of inserted an extra step between the prayer and the constitutional ban on establishing a state religion, brought an interesting extra element in, and the 11th Circuit seemed to like it. They said, yeah, okay, state speech, interesting. And they sided with this state athletic association. Well, the high school appealed. Supreme Court rejected that appeal. We don't know why they didn't attach an opinion, but for now, the 11th Circuit opinion stands, so it's an interesting new theory that we can watch develop. Meanwhile,
it was fun. I enjoyed it.
V. U.S., that's Hudson with a T, New Orleans consented in a 2013 case to build a prison with medical space for mental health patients, but is trying to get out of the agreement. New Orleans says that the situation has changed, but it appears that the situation is just different people got elected, if I'm reading this right. I don't know. So the Supremes rejected the petition, but Justice Alito, joined by Thomas, said in a dissent that the cause of action was illegal to begin with and never should have proceeded. So everything that follows should also be dismissed. At the very least, he says, the defendant should have been forced to prove that the beds are still needed. But doesn't matter because the case won't be heard anyway, so New Orleans has to keep building. Okay, now we are going to dig into this Comey case. I'm going to put a puzzle together for you guys, but it's got
here we
a lot of little pieces, so please bear with me.
This is all the Comey stuff we had to get through. But it's important to know because the MAGA people and the Trump tards and the Q tards, all those people are just like, he lied to Congress, can't do that, ha 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 ha. But he didn't actually lie to Congress, first of all. And second of all, they fucked up this whole case, all because they wanted Siebert to do it. Siebert said there's no evidence. Siebert left, and they were running out of time for the statute of limitations.
All right. James Comey was the head of the FBI, and then
I'm glad you're doing better, buddy.
And right after that, he spoke to Senator Chuck Grassley in a Senate hearing. Listen closely to the words here. Senator Grassley asked, forced to prove that the beds are still needed, but doesn't matter. A lot of little pieces, so please bear with me.
I want to hear these dates.
All right. James Comey was the head of the FBI, and then Trump fired him in 2017. And
2017, he spoke to Grassley.
Right after that, he spoke to Senator Chuck Grassley in a Senate hearing. Listen closely to the words here. Senator Grassley asked, have you ever or have you authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? And Comey said no. And then 3 years later, Comey was called back to the Senate. This was 2020. And on that day, Ted Cruz asked him a different but similar question that was a little bit more vague. Senator Cruz asked, quote, so your testimony is that you've never authorized anyone to leak. And Mr. McCabe, that's Andrew McCabe, if he says contrary, is not telling the truth.
Okay, so that's what he says. The first time was, hey, did you authorize any FBI employee, anybody at the FBI, to speak to the press? No. 2020, he says, so if you're saying you never authorized anybody to speak at the FBI, and Mr. McCabe would testify the same. And he says, I don't know what McCabe would say, but I stand by my 2017 testimony.
That's correct. And James Comey's response was, quote, again, I'm not going to characterize Andy's testimony, but mine is the same today. Meaning his testimony from...
My testimony is the same today as my last testimony. What was his last testimony? He had never authorized anybody at the FBI to speak to the press. He told the truth.
2017, he stands by.
It's Ted Cruz's follow-up. It's Ted Cruz's fuck-up that he didn't say, I want to know today. Have you ever authorized anyone at all, ever, to authorize them to speak to the press on your behalf?
He doesn't answer Cruz's question about whether he's authorized anyone to leak ever. He just says, my answer from before, in response to Grassley's question, that's the same. Remember, these are all lawyers. They know exactly what they're saying.
Yes.
Cruz, Grassley, Comey.
All lawyers. They know exactly what the fuck they're doing.
None of these guys are being sloppy, so they're using their words real carefully. Okay, it's all classic lawyery garbage, right? Did he technically lie or not? Whatever. I want you guys to understand that part, but we're going to leave it behind for a minute because there is a side issue in this case that was so complicated they had to appoint a separate judge just to deal with it. And that filing came out yesterday that's so crazy, and it's from this judge. So we're going to talk about this side issue, but it's important to remember what the main issue was. So the reason James Comey didn't directly answer Ted Cruz's question, it seems to me anyway, is that allegedly he did authorize someone to speak to the press, but it wasn't a current FBI employee. It was a friend of his, a Columbia professor named Daniel Richman. He'd worked for the FBI at some point, but I think as like a consultant, and it appears not during the time in question. I'm not sure. Doesn't matter right now. So back in 2020, the FBI investigated this guy, Daniel Richman, on his own for criminal activity related to some sort of leak. They wanted to know if he had stolen classified documents. So they got a search warrant and searched his computer, his work email, his phone, and his...
I think McCabe just says something like, to my knowledge, right? Yeah, well, I don't know if he even... Did McCabe testify in 2020 or did he testify in 2017? I can't remember. I remember when it was all going on. I was still all tied up in the Trump shit. Like I was a Trump supporter and thought they were all out to get him.
iPad from that 2016 to 2017 time period. But all search warrants have what's called a particularity requirement. It's part of the Fourth Amendment. Basically, a warrant has to identify specific crimes and then link any items to be seized in relation to that specific crime. There's not allowed to be any discretion left to the officer. That's the rule. So this warrant was written to search for evidence that Daniel Richmond...
This is how fucked up the evidence shit is. Okay, this evidence shit is bad, and warrants are very specific.
Got a search warrant and searched his computer, his work email, his phone, and his iPad from that 2016 to 2017 time period. But all search warrants have what's called a particular...
0301 a subscription.
Oh, thank you.
Anonymous user gifted a tier 1 sub to Aberry 0301.
Thank you very much for the gifted sub. Welcome, Aberry 0301. He said, I stand by the testimony you summarized that I gave in May of 2017. Prosecutors claim that statement was false because Comey allegedly authorized a leak to an FBI investigation. The indictment does not name the investigation, but it appears to relate to Wall Street Journal report from October 2016 about an FBI probe into Clinton's family's charitable foundation. Cruz questioned Comey at the hearing about Comey's deputy, Andrew McCabe, who has admitted to being a source for that report. Comey has said that he did not authorize disclosure and was not aware of it before the article was published.
Particularity requirements, part of the Fourth Amendment. Basically, a warrant has to identify specific crimes and then link any items to be seized in relation to that specific crime. There's not allowed to be any discretion left to the officer. That's the rule. So this warrant was written to search for evidence that Daniel Richmond had stolen classified documents and a couple other similar things. But on top of the normal requirements, the judge here added an extra layer of protection. This judge said if you find anything else in this data, it must immediately be sealed. It means locked up forever or destroyed or something. It's gone. So, back in 2020, the FBI looked through that stuff, but before they looked through it, they excluded any material between Daniel Richmond and his lawyer that was privileged, and anything between Columbia University.
Always remember, your lawyer, the privilege clause, privileged information is protected to protect you. Your lawyer cannot waive that for you, ever.
And their lawyers, which is privileged, which is normal. That's what you do. And then they looked through what was left, didn't find anything worth using, so in accordance with the search warrant, everything should have been sealed at the end of that investigation and never seen again. But that's not what happened. Because in 2025, the FBI pulled those computer files back out of storage. And without talking to a court, they just opened them up and searched them for incriminating evidence. Not against Daniel Richmond, but against James Comey, who wasn't even listed on the search warrant. And you can't expand your use of evidence gained through a search warrant like that. It's not allowed. It's a huge Fourth Amendment violation. So even under normal circumstances, this would have been a problem, but it gets so much worse, you guys. Because it turns out James Comey and Dan Richmond weren't just friends or colleagues. Dan Richmond was James Comey's lawyer. So let that sink in for a second. So the FBI has illegally accessed James Comey's attorney's records and then used them in a criminal case against him. And I said earlier that when they were coming after Dan Richmond, they cleared attorney-client privilege issues between Richmond and his attorney and Columbia and their attorneys. But attorney-client privilege isn't there to protect the attorney. It's there to protect the client. In this case, James Comey. The government never bothered to ask him to search the documents for privilege. In fact...
By the way, you guys know that Pam Bondi tried to get ahead of this. She knew that Lindsay Halligan was probably going to be ruled as didn't have the authority to bring this case. And she put out a memo saying, I exercised the authority vested in me on September 22nd, 2025, as the Attorney General to designate and appoint Lindsay Halligan to the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. Then it says, for the avoidance of doubt as to the validity of that application and the virtue of the authority vested in Attorney General by law, I hereby appoint Ms. Halligan to the additional position of special attorney as of September 22nd, 2025, and thereby ratify her employment as an attorney for the Department of Justice from that date going forward. As a special attorney, Ms. Halligan has the authority to conduct in the Eastern District of Virginia any kind of legal proceeding, civil or criminal, including grand jury proceedings and proceedings before the United States magistrates and judges. In the alternative, should a court conclude that Ms. Halligan's authority as special attorney is limited to a particular matter, I hereby delegate to Ms. Halligan the authority as a special attorney to conduct and supervise the prosecution in the United States v. Comey and United States v. James. Like, she knew this was coming, so she tried to retroactively make her a special attorney. Like, what the fuck?
U.S. government stood up in a hearing on November 5th, just a couple weeks ago, told the judge, well, we cleared these documents for privilege back in 2017 with Dan Richmond, and he said it was fine. You can feel the heat rising off the judge's head as she explains in this filing that everybody involved knows perfectly well that a lawyer cannot waive a client's privilege.
They're all lawyers in the room. Everybody fucking knows. When Lindsay Halligan stands up and says, oh, well, we thought since... his lawyer didn't take exception to, privileged information, that he agreed to. Everybody in that room knows that's illegal. Your lawyer cannot waive your protection for privileged information as you being the client. It can't happen.
So, the two key sort of threshold issues that the judge dealt with yesterday are, one, the FBI used privileged material from Comey's attorney that it essentially illegally obtained by pulling it out of another case, and two, that the FBI had violated the original search warrant and with it the Fourth Amendment by ignoring the particularity requirement by searching the documents for criminal activity that wasn't listed in the warrant. But that was just the tip of the iceberg, because the judge started to pick apart the actual process used by the prosecutor to get an indictment from the grand jury, and this is where things go really off the rails. So, first, a guy who was identified as FBI agent number 3 was warned by FBI agent number 2 that all of their evidence was tainted by this privilege issue sometime earlier on September 25th or whatever day it was. Despite that, he immediately went ahead and testified to the grand jury like 2 hours later about what he'd seen in the evidence, knowing it was illegal, and he was the only witness. Okay. Second, according to the judge, even though the government argues they didn't present any of the actual evidence from the Richmond warrants to the grand jury, the judge says your entire case relied exclusively on information that you'd illegally gathered from those warrants. There is no other case. Third, a couple people have asked, well, did the evidence at least prove he broke the law? I can't see the evidence presented, it's redacted, but from what I can tell, it's evidence related to what Comey said to Richmond, which makes sense. It was Dan Richmond's emails. But as Comey points out, the whole conversation with Ted Cruz was about Andrew McCabe. And Comey said, I never said I didn't tell anybody. I said my statements from 2017 was still correct, which was, again, about Andrew McCabe. So it's a little bit less of a clear issue, but it definitely wasn't clear evidence. Now, last thing the judge discusses are 3 fatal things the prosecutor did to the grand jury proceeding that, even without the rest of this, would probably be fatal to the case. So first, prosecutor suggested Comey had the burden of proving his innocence at trial. This one's a little obscure, but it's there. Second, the prosecutor suggested that the grand jury didn't have to rely...
Lindsay Halligan made it seem like, I don't know why he did this or why he did that or why he said this, but I'm here to get this return on this, for the grand jury indictment, and then I'll make him answer. And we got better evidence, so I'm just showing you the tip of the iceberg here. You can't lie about this. He should sue the government, but he might just want to disappear. They're obviously after his head.
But it definitely wasn't clear evidence. Now, last thing the judge discusses are 3 fatal things the prosecutor did to the grand jury proceeding that, even without the rest of this, would probably be fatal to the case. So first, prosecutor suggested Comey had the burden of proving his innocence at trial. This one's a little obscure, but it's there. Second, the prosecutor suggested that the grand jury didn't have to rely on the record before them to determine probable cause, because they could be assured that the government had more evidence that would be presented at trial. This was just their opener, which also definitely not allowed. Third, and most insanely, after the grand jury received the charging document with 3 counts, decided after listening to evidence all day and voting that they would handwrite, "We reject this count right here," and signing off on the rest of that document, it appears the prosecutor took that document, ignored it, wrote a new one that only included the parts that the grand jury liked, and rather than present it to the grand jury again and say, "Hey, I wrote a new one, are you guys cool with this?" just told the grand jury foreperson, "Okay, this is it, just sign this." We think, because the part of the video that would have shown that is gone. We don't know what happened, but we do know.
It's so crazy that that's the only video that's gone. That's the only part that doesn't exist. And she testified that that's the full unredacted, nothing changed, not edited. But where is this part of the video?
That there are 2 copies of the indictment, and the one they served to James Comey isn't the one the grand jury agreed to. So this was all just a decision by the second judge about whether or not to turn over the grand jury testimony to James Comey and let him see what happened so he can make arguments based on that. And the judge said yes, based on all of this, quote, "disturbing pattern of profound investigative missteps that led an FBI agent and a prosecutor to potentially undermine the integrity of the grand jury proceeding. Irregularities have occurred in the grand jury proceeding and may justify dismissal of 1 or more counts of the indictment. Therefore, transcripts are going to get handed over to Comey, and the judge recommends that he might want to file a motion to dismiss based on her new filings." And that is about the shape of it. Whew. Okay, everybody, that is your Tuesday morning report on the past day in federal courts. Is anybody else exhausted? Please consider subscribing at the link on the screen. It's right there somewhere. Otherwise, keep watching, everybody. I will keep going. Thanks a lot. Have a great Tuesday.
All right, now let's talk about why she's not a valid lawyer. I've got the opinion here. So basically the judge goes through here and says, well, there's a couple different claims here that they brought me in to do this. They brought her in from South Carolina. There's a couple different claims here. But the first one to address is whether she's even a valid fucking attorney, state attorney. Because if she's not, then why do I have to address all the other issues? And she goes into, now remember, Siebert was there as the state attorney. His 120 days expired without being confirmed by Congress. So it falls on the district court to appoint him. So the reason this is unusual is usually like you're either there 120 days and you get confirmed by Congress, or the district court goes ahead and approves you and you just stay at your job. But Trump was trying to put pressure on him to go after James and Comey, Letitia James and James Comey. And he didn't want to do that, so he quit or was fired or whatever. Then Pam Bondi just comes in and says, I'll put an attorney there. But is that what the Constitution says? Does the Constitution say if you have an attorney, a state attorney, they go there full 120 days, that they run out of time, then the district court approves them to stay, and then they leave, that the attorney general now gets to pick a new attorney? No. Here's what it says. According to the government, this case is simple. In its view, the one and only limitation on the Attorney General's authority to appoint interim U.S. attorneys under Section 546 is subsection B, which bars the Attorney General from appointing anyone whom the Senate has refused to confirm. Nothing in text, it continues, explicitly or implicitly, precludes the Attorney General from making multiple interim appointments during a vacancy. And that's true. It does not stop them from making multiple appointments. That is true. Thus, the government concludes, because the Senate has not refused advice or consent to Ms. Halligan, the Attorney General lawfully appointed her as interim U.S. attorney. Mr. Comey counters and says that Section 546 limits the total tenure of an Attorney General's interim appointments to 120 days, no matter how many you put there, and therefore precludes an additional appointment by the Attorney General after the expiration of the 120-day period. So what they're saying is that 120 days expired, you can't just put a new one in. Accordingly, he argues Ms. Halligan's appointment was unlawful because the district court possessed the exclusive authority to appoint the interim U.S. attorney. once Mr. Siebert's appointment by the Attorney General expired. So once Siebert hit 120 days, the district court gets to pick the U.S. attorney now. The district court gets to pick it, whether it's Siebert or anybody else. And if Siebert leaves, it doesn't say now it reverts back to the Attorney General. The district court still gets to pick again. Once Mr. Siebert's appointment by Attorney General expired on May 21st, Mr. Comey has the better reading of the statute. The preeminent canon of statutory interpretation requires courts to presume that the legislation says in a statute what it means and means in a statute what it says there. That's a quote. Thus, my inquiry begins with the statutory text. What does the text say? And ends there as well if the text is unambiguous. The plainness or ambiguity of a statutory language is determined by reference to the words, the language themselves, the specific context in which the language is used, and the broader context of the statute as a whole. So that's how they do it. They take the actual text, the specific context in which it's used, and the whole statute as a whole. Does that have a broader meaning? This is what judges do all the time, is just figure out what laws actually mean. Section 546, this is the judge speaking. Section 546 is unambiguous. There's no doubt here what it says. Subsection A begins by authorizing the Attorney General to appoint a United States Attorney for the district in which the office of the United States Attorney is vacant. So we know that's for sure. The Attorney General can appoint United States attorneys for vacant districts. Okay? Subsection C2, however, imposes a time limit on appointments made by the Attorney General. So we know there's a time limit on appointments made by the Attorney General. It specifies that a person appointed as United States Attorney under the statute may serve until the expiration of 120 days after the appointment by Attorney General. So once the Attorney General appoints a U.S. attorney, they got 120 days. Subsection D then provides a single option. There's only one option under subsection D for how subsequent interim appointments may be made. It says, if an appointment expires under subsection C2, the district court for such district, and only the district court, may appoint a United States attorney to serve until that vacancy is filled. The text and the structure of subsection D in particular make clear the appointment power, 1, shifts to the district court after that 120-day period, and 2, does not revert back to the Attorney General. If a court-appointed U.S. attorney leaves office before a Senate-confirmed U.S. attorney is installed. So basically what this judge is saying is right here in the U.S. District Court for Northern Virginia or whatever, the only people that can be putting in U.S. attorneys is the district court right now until you get appointed one by the Senate. Then once you have one appointed by the Senate, they're fine. And if they leave, you got another 120 days you can appoint somebody. Let's see. The first word in subsection D, if, introduces a conditional clause that establishes the condition triggering the district court's authority. A conditional clause, blah, blah. The condition is met once an appointee expires under subsection C2. The indefinite article "an" points to a nonspecific object, thing, or person that is not distinguished from other members of a class. So, the expiration of any single Attorney General appointment satisfies the condition. Thus, if, as here, a court-appointed U.S. attorney resigns, the district court remains the sole authority to make another interim appointment because the triggering event, the expiration of an appointment under subsection C2, has already occurred. Finally, we see the conjunction until in subject D's main clause defines the duration of the district court's authority. It lasts from the moment the condition is first met, the 120 days, up to the time that the vacancy is filled by a Senate-confirmed appointee. This reading is reinforced by the negative implication canon, which recognizes that the expression of one thing implies the exclusion of others. That's an opinion by Antonin Scalia and Brian A. Garner in Reading Law, the Interpretation of Legal Text, page number 107, published in 2012. To be sure, the Supreme Court has cautioned that the force of any negative implication depends on context, and that the canon applies only when circumstances support a sensible inference that the term left out must have been meant to be excluded. Here, however, the inference is not just sensible but overwhelming. Congress assigned the authority to appoint interim U.S. attorneys to different actors in different parts of the same statute. First, the Attorney General in subsection A can appoint, and then the district court takes over in subsection D. The omission of the Attorney General in subsection D, when combined with her inclusion in subsection A, is strong evidence Congress did not intend for the Attorney General to retain appointment power beyond 120 days. The absence of any temporal limit in subsection D strikes us as deliberate rather than serendipitous, especially in view of the contrast between adjacent sections of a single statute. I don't know why you keep repeating the same shit about lawfare. That's how our laws are based. You don't like it? I guess you go to a country with no written laws. I don't know. Somebody has to interpret them. Adopting the government's contrary reading would render subsection D insignificant, leaving it to lie dormant in all but the most unlikely circumstances. So why would we even have, if we take the government's reading of this, why would we even have subsection D that says it's on the circuit court to appoint a U.S. attorney after the 120 days? Courts must, under the government's interpretation, Attorney General appointees can serve indefinitely without Senate confirmation as long as the Attorney General revisits her interim appointees every 120 days. So basically, if we took the government's reading, just every 120 days, she could just appoint somebody over and over and over and over. So there'd be no reason to ever go to the Senate, and there'd be no reason for the circuit court to ever be involved. But if that were correct, the Attorney General could prevent interim appointments from ever expiring under subsection C2, which in turn would prevent the district court from ever exercising its appointment power under section D. Such a result would run counter to the principle that courts must avoid interpreting statutes in a way that has the practical effect of rendering a provision entirely useless in all but the most unusual circumstances. The government's interpretation also conflicts with Section 546 statutory history. See Snyder v. United States v. Hansen, and Scalia and Garner Supra at 440. From 1986 to 2006, Section 546 was identical to its current form. Technical Amendments Act of 1986 revised these, but in 2006, Congress amended the statute to abolish the 120-day limit and the district court's backstopping role altogether. This change, which was inserted quietly into the conference report on the Reauthorization Act without debate, made it possible for United States attorneys appointed on an interim basis to serve indefinitely without Senate confirmation. The switch to an unlimited appointment was short-lived, however. Just over a year later, Congress reverted the pre-Reauthorization Act language, reinstating the 120-day limit on the district court's role in the interim appointment. When Congress amends legislation, courts must presume it intends the change to have real and substantial effects. Yet, if the government's reading were correct, the 2007 Act would have had virtually no effect, as it would still allow the executive to evade Senate confirmation processes indefinitely by stacking successive 120-day appointments. Undeterred, the government insists that in reenacting the pre-2006 text, Congress presumptively ratified the executive's long-standing use of successive 120-day appointments under the 86-2006 version of the statute. Sorry, there's a bunch of case law I got to quit. Or I got to skip. But the evidence on which the government relies, a handful of successive 120-day appointments across the Clinton and Bush administrations, hardly establishes a long-standing executive practice. Given the fact that the practice goes back over 200 years and has received congressional acquiescence throughout its history, the conclusion that the president's control of foreign relations includes the settlement of claims is indisputable. This is especially true when considering the Attorney General had no authority to appoint interim U.S. attorneys at all pre-1986. Finally, for those who find it relevant, the legislative history confirms Congress sought to eliminate the executive branch's ability to circumvent Senate's advice and counsel roles, or in consent role, through repeat and indefinite interim appointments. For example, in describing the pre-2006 framework, Senator Leahy explained Congress had carefully circumscribed the Attorney General's authority to appoint an interim U.S. attorney by limiting it to 120 days, after which the district court would make any further interim appointment needed. Any further. The 2007 Act, he stated, would reinstate those vital limits on Attorney General's authority and bring back incentives for an administration to fill vacancies with Senate-confirmed nominees. Notably, Senator Leahy also rejected the notion that the Attorney General could use the 120-day appointment authority more than once, stating that, and Pam Bondi knows this, Donald Trump knows this, stating that the statute is not designed or intended to be used repeatedly for the same vacancy. Senator Feinstein, the 2007 Act's primary sponsor, similarly stated that the legislation would return the law to what it was before the change was made in March 2006. She explained, it would still give the Attorney General the authority to appoint interim U.S. attorneys, but it would limit that authority to 120 days. If after that time the president had not nominated a new U.S. attorney or the Senate had not confirmed a nominee, then the district courts would appoint an interim U.S. attorney. Several other senators echoed this understanding, as did members of the House of Representatives, and the accompanying House report explicitly identified bypassing the requirement for senatorial advice and consent as a primary concern motivating this 2007 Act. In sum, the text, structure, and history of Section 546 point to one conclusion. The Attorney General's authority to appoint an interim U.S. attorney lasts for a total of 120 days from the date she first invokes Section 546 after the departure of a Senate-confirmed U.S. attorney. If the position remains vacant at the end of a 120-day period, the exclusive authority to make further interim appointments under the statute shifts to the district court, where it remains until the president's nominee is confirmed by Senate. So what that's telling us is Trump, in any of these spots where the 120 days have expired, if that person leaves and is not confirmed by the court, Trump can't pick any of these attorneys ever again until he has them confirmed by Congress. And they know this. They know this was argued in 2007. They know the law was changed for like less than a year. They know all this, but they gotta try their best, right? Ms. Halligan was not appointed in a manner consistent with the framework. The 120-day clock began running when Mr. Siebert appointment on January 21st, 2025. When that clock expired on May 21st, 2025, so too did the Attorney General's appointment authority. Consequently, I conclude that the Attorney General's attempt to install Ms. Halligan as interim U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia was invalid, and that Ms. Halligan has been unlawfully serving in that role since September 22nd of 2025. Ms. Halligan's appointment also violated the Appointments Clause. As discussed, the Appointments Clause allows Congress to law by vest the appointments of inferior officers and the president alone in the court of law or the heads of departments. U.S. Constitution, Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2 Through Section 546, Congress devised a statutory scheme that vests the appointment of interim U.S. attorneys first in the head of a department and then in the courts of law. Because Ms. Halligan was appointed in violation of that scheme, her appointment was not authorized by law and thus violates the Appointments Clause. Blah, 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 blah. Resisting this conclusion, the government briefly asserts that not every action in excess of statutory authority is ipso facto in violation of the Constitution. That is true, but beside the point. An officer cannot lawfully exercise the statutory power of her office at all, unless she has been properly appointed under Article 2. And here, Ms. Halligan has not been appointed, 1, by the president with the advice and consent of Senate, or 2, through a process Congress has authorized by statute. So, an Appointments Clause violation has occurred. The next question is, what to do about the violation? The Appointments Clause is more than a matter of etiquette or protocol. It is among the significant structural safeguards of the Constitution scheme. The clause not only serves as a bulwark against one branch, but also preserves another aspect of the Constitution's structural integrity by preventing the diffusion of the appointment's power. Given its importance within our Constitution structure, remedies with bite should be applied to appointments that run afoul of the clause's restrictions. Here, Mr. Comey contends Ms. Halligan's unlawful appointment renders all her purported official actions void. He therefore argues the case must be dismissed because Ms. Halligan was not lawfully exercising executive power when she appeared before the grand jury alone and obtained this indictment. When an appointment violates the Appointment Clause, from the jump, the actor has exercised power that she did not lawfully possess. Blah, 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 blah. In such case, the proper remedy is invalidation of the actions taken by the actor. Invalidation follows directly from the government's actor's lack of authority to take this challenged action in the first place. That is, winning the merits of the constitutional challenge is enough. In light of these principles, I conclude that all actions flowing from Ms. Halligan's defective appointment, including securing and signing Mr. Comey's indictment, constitute unlawful exercises of executive power and must be set aside. There is simply no alternative course to cure the unconstitutional problem. The government attempts to counter this result with several arguments, but none is persuasive. First, the government argues that whatever her status as U.S. attorney, Ms. Halligan still validly obtained and signed Mr. Comey's indictment as an attorney for the government. In support of this argument, the government relies on the Attorney General's October 31st order, which purported to retroactively appoint Ms. Halligan to the additional position of special attorney effective 22 September 2005, or 2025, 3 days before Mr. Comey was indicted. Okay. Attorney General Order Number 6485-2025. Although the Attorney General has the power to appoint subordinate officers to assist her in the discharge of her duties, the government has identified no authority allowing the Attorney General to reach back in time and rewrite the terms of a past appointment. She can't go back in time and say, oh, well, she was a special attorney then. How fucking stupid. Nor can the variation between the September 22nd and October 31st orders be dismissed as mere paperwork error, as suggested by the government. The September 22nd order was unambiguous. The Attorney General stated she was appointing Ms. Halligan under 28 U.S.C. 546 to serve as the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia for the period of 120 days or until replaced in accordance with law, whichever occurs first. The October 31st order then purported to appoint Ms. Halligan to an entirely different position, special attorney, under entirely different statutes, which would be 509, 510, and 515. I reject the Attorney General's attempt to retroactively confer special attorney status on Ms. Halligan, regardless of what the Attorney General intended, ECF number 137 at 23, or could have done at 28. The fact remains that Ms. Halligan was not an attorney authorized by law to conduct grand jury proceedings when she secured Mr. Comey's indictment. Second, the government contends that even if Ms. Halligan lacked the authority to obtain and sign indictments when she appeared before the grand jury, her actions should be entitled to de facto validity. When applicable, de facto officer doctrine confers validity upon acts performed by a person acting under the color of official title, even though it is later discovered that the legality of that person's appointment or election to the office is deficient. In other words, the doctrine operates so that a defect in an official's appointment is not an adequate ground to challenge his earlier decisions. But the de facto doctrine applies only to some non-constitutional appointment challenges. Sorry. It has no application when appointments clause challenges are involved. Then it links more case law. In Ryder, an unanimous Supreme Court declined to apply the de facto officer doctrine to a claim that two judges on a panel of the Coast Guard Court of Military Review had been appointed in violation of the Appointments Clause. The court held that one who makes a timely challenge to the constitutional validity of the appointment of an officer is entitled to a decision on the merits of the question and whatever relief may be appropriate if a violation indeed occurred. Any other rule, it explained, would create a disincentive to raise Appointments Clause challenges with respect to questionable appointments. So basically, if the government had their way and saying, oh, well, you know, it's de facto, right? She thought she was validly appointed, so it stands. Well, then why would anybody ever challenge the Appointments Clause? The court then buried past precedents applying the doctrine. Blah, blah, blah. It declared to the extent those cases may be thought to have implicitly applied a form of the de facto officer doctrine, we are not inclined to extend them beyond their facts. After Ryder, the Supreme Court in Lucia doubled down on its holding that the de facto officer doctrine has no place when the Appointments Clause challenges are involved. Blah, 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 blah. Given the court's holding in Ryder and Lucia, the de facto officer doctrine does not bar the relief sought here by Mr. Comey. Third, the government submits that the grand jury's independent decision to indict Mr. Comey renders any error in his indictment harmless. The customary harmless error inquiry is normally applicable where a court is asked to dismiss an indictment prior to the conclusion of the trial. Harmless error analysis does not apply, however, when the structural protections of the grand jury have been so compromised as to render the proceedings fundamentally unfair. This case presents the unique, if not unprecedented, situation where an unconstitutionally appointed prosecutor, exercising power she did not lawfully possess, acted alone in conducting a grand jury proceeding and securing an indictment. In light of the near-complete control that prosecutors wield over the grand jury process, such an error necessarily affects the entire framework within which the proceedings occur, and thus defies analysis by harmless error standards. Next paragraph. As a final fallback position, the government argues that even if Mr. Comey's indictment is flawed, dismissal is inappropriate because the Attorney General has since ratified Ms. Halligan's actions before the grand jury and her signature on the indictment. Even assuming the agency law doctrine of ratification can be used to cure a defective indictment, the government cites no authority holding as much. The Attorney General's attempt at ratification here fails. Ratification is the affirmance by a person of a prior act which did not bind him, but which was done or professedly done in his accounts. In effect, the doctrine reaches back and makes it so that a formerly unauthorized act was authorized from the get-go. But for ratification to be effective, the principal must have had the authority to authorize the action both when the action was initially performed by the agent and when the act was affirmed through ratification by the principal. The Attorney General lacked the authority on both points here. I have already concluded that Ms. Halligan's original appointment was invalid and that the Attorney General's attempt to retroactively bestow special attorney status on her was ineffective. As a result, the Attorney General could not have authorized Ms. Halligan, who was not an attorney for the government at the time, to present Mr. Comey's indictment to a grand jury on September 25th. Restatement. second of agency, supra, stating that if the purported or intended principal could not have authorized the challenged act when it was done, he cannot ratify it. The implications of a contrary conclusion are extraordinary. It would mean that the government could send any private citizen off the street, attorney or not, into the grand jury room to secure an indictment so long as the attorney general gives her approval after the fact. That can't be law. So they could pick up a homeless hobo off the sidewalk, send them in, get a grand jury indictment, and then 6 months later, the attorney general will say, yeah, I made them special attorney 2 years ago. What? The government also fails to meet the second requirement for valid ratification, i.e. that the principal must have been able to do the act ratified at the time ratification was made. In NRA Political Victory Fund, the Supreme Court rejected the Solicitor General's attempt to ratify a filing of unauthorized petition for certiorari when the attempted ratification occurred after the filing deadline had already passed. Similarly here, the Attorney General's attempt to ratify Mr. Comey's indictment on October 31st came too late in the day to be effective, as a statute of limitations for the charged offenses expired 31 days earlier on September 30th. The government response to the Attorney General's ratification was proper, and she could have personally obtained a new indictment on October 31st using the grace period set forth in 18 U.S.C. 3288. That statute in part says here, whenever an indictment or an information charging a felony is dismissed for any reason after the period prescribed by the applicable statute of limitations has expired, a new indictment may be returned in the appropriate jurisdiction within 6 calendar months of the date of the dismissal of the indictment or information. 18 U.S.C. 3288. By its own terms, Section 3288 only applies where an indictment has previously been dismissed. But on October 31st, Mr. Comey's indictment remained pending. Thus, the Attorney General could not have invoked Section 3288 at the time a ratification was made. Dismissal without prejudice. Having found that Ms. Halligan's appointment violated 28 U.S.C. 546 and the appointments clause and the dismissal of Mr. Comey's indictment is warranted, the remaining issue is whether dismissal should be with or without prejudice, relying primarily on the Ninth Circuit decision in the United States v. Bundy. Mr. Comey urges me to exercise my supervisory powers and dismiss his indictment with prejudice. A with prejudice dismissal is necessary, he argues, to vindicate the interests protected by the appointments clause and to deter the government from using unlawful appointments to effectuate retaliation against perceived political opponents. The government, on the other hand, asserts that any dismissal should be without prejudice, for Mr. Comey comes nowhere close to showing flagrant misbehavior, substantial prejudice, or the unavailability of a lesser sanction. Skip that paragraph. Ultimately, I believe the Supreme Court's appointment clause jurisprudence provides the answer to the with or without prejudice question. In both Ryder and Lucia, the court essentially unwound its actions taken by the unconstitutionally appointed officer and restored the affected party to the position the party occupied before being subject to these invalid acts. The appropriate remedy for an adjudication tainted with an appointments violation is a new hearing before a properly appointed official. I will do the same here. I will invalidate the ultra vires acts performed by Ms. Halligan and dismiss the indictment without prejudice, returning Mr. Comey to the status he occupied before being indicted. Conclusion. For the reasons set forth above, it is hereby ordered and adjudicated as follows. The appointment of Ms. Halligan as interim U.S. Attorney. Has anybody ever lost a job this quick? U.S. interim attorney violated 28 U.S.C. and 546 and the appointments clause of the U.S. Constitution. All actions flowing from Ms. Halligan's defective appointment, including securing and signing Mr. Comey's indictment, were unlawful exercises of executive power and are hereby set aside. The Attorney General's attempts to ratify Ms. Halligan's actions were ineffective and are hereby set aside. Mr. Comey's motion to dismiss the indictment is granted in accordance with this order. The indictment is dismissed without prejudice. The power to appoint an interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia pursuant to 28 U.S.C. 546 during the current vacancy lies with the district court until a U.S. attorney is nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate under 28 U.S.C. 541. It is so ordered. There you go. There's the actual opinion of the piece. Let's see. I think he probably did one too. Here it is.
Hey guys, I wanted to come in for just a second and address the dismissal of the Letitia James and James Comey cases based on Lindsay Halligan never being appointed properly. And one of the things I'm seeing in the news, as usual, is that this is being dismissed because...
Yeah, it was done through a text message that Trump accidentally posted on Truth Social. Lindsay Halligan likes you a lot. Put her there. She told me she'd go get Comey and James and Shiffy Schiff.
Lindsay Halligan was never Senate confirmed, and that was the argument brought maybe a year ago as to why charges, or a year and a half ago, why charges were dismissed against Donald Trump, is that Jack Smith was never Senate confirmed. There's a little bit more to it here, which is not just that she wasn't Senate confirmed, but there are rules in place.
The only good thing, or depends on how you look at it, the only good thing for Lindsay Halligan, the only bad thing for America, is that because she wasn't actually the U.S. attorney, and even though she's acting as if she was, this may actually protect her from a bar review for the bullshit that she pulled with the grand jury. She may never be held accountable for that.
Place to put in an interim prosecutor, and those weren't followed either. So one way or another, the judge agreed that she wasn't in place properly. But Pam Bondi said, well, I came through later and signed off on this. And the judge seems to basically have dismissed that idea too, but not in too much detail. I still have questions here that I would like answered, and I think they're going to get shaken out in the wash. But this was dismissed with prejudice, which means it can be brought again if they can find a properly appointed prosecutor who's willing to bring it. I can't imagine anybody would, because they saw how close Halligan got to losing her license. But a lot of people are ambitious and might be willing to do it to be in really good standing with the president. I don't know. We're going to find out. The other issue is that since the statute of limitations has run now on James Comey's alleged crime, it may be too late to re-bring charges if they've actually been dismissed. So what's going to have to probably happen there is they will have to appeal this dismissal rather than bring a new charge against Comey, because I think it's going to be too late to bring a new charge against Comey if they want to make that happen. We're going to see how badly Donald Trump really wants to do this, or whomever really wants to do this. But again, I still have some questions I need answers to, and I'm just not quite there yet. And I promised myself to take a couple of days off of really intense reading because I needed a little break. So I'm not going to do it tonight. But that's where we are right now, and I will get you more information a little bit later, but I didn't want to leave you hanging for the next couple days. Anyway, I hope everybody's having this is a really short week if you are going in, and I hope you all have a fantastic Thanksgiving. If you don't hear from me,
these people trying to get chummy with Trump by doing they're all going to fucking lose their licenses. They're all going to fuck around and find out.
Probably will in the next couple days. All right. Hope everybody's doing good. Hey guys, I want to...
Insane, dude. Fucking sane.
A full-blown Republican rebellion is erupting right now against Donald Trump and his foreign policy. And if this happens, it will completely blow up what Donald Trump is trying to do. Happening right now, sitting U.S. Republican Representative Brian Fitzpatrick has just filed a discharge pension, which will force the House on a vote against a massive Russian sanctions bill that Trump's been spending months trying to hide. This is not one of those symbolic post. No. This one is a sanctions package which would go after Russia's oil buyers and hit them with 500% tariffs. On top of that, it would crush Russian banks.
I'm showing this again because I think you need to contact your representatives, your senator, and tell them we want this. We want sanctions now against Russia.
It would freeze Russian assets worldwide. It would stop Russian visas, meaning that Russians can't come into this country, something that I don't understand why we're allowing anyway. But most importantly, it would target any country who is still trying to help Russia's war machine. Fitzpatrick even went as far to say that Donald Trump is pushing, quote-unquote, Russian drafted propaganda, which is a Republican accusing a Republican president of parroting Kremlin talking points. And let me explain to you how this is going to melt Donald Trump's world. You see, right now, the Senate already has a majority of folks ready to pass any kind of sanctions bill, whether it be the Senate bill or the House bill. And in speaking to senators, just so you know, I know about 90 plus that are ready to move forward with any Russian sanctions bill. Well, House has its own version, and right now they have 119 co-sponsors, some Democrats and some Republicans. And if we can get 218 signatures, we can override Mike Johnson, who's been sitting on said bill, something that Donald Trump asked him to do. And heck, we even hear people like Lindsey Graham, yes, yet another Republican, saying that these sanctions are the only real way to stop Russia's invasion and to block what they call Russia's friendly peace deal. Well, I mean, Trump calls it a friendly peace deal. So this is where you come in. It's time for you to call your senators and representatives and say, hey, if this thing comes to the floor, you need to vote yes, because this is the icing on the cake. Say the House passes it, the Senate's going to pass it automatically, and it gets to Trump's desk, in which right now Trump is very pro-Russia. Well, if he rejects it, we have enough votes to go ahead and override him. So that's right. Call your representatives so that way we can finally give Ukraine what they deserve, which is a just peace. A full-blown Republican rebellion is erupting right now.
Oh, I want to see this. Hold on.
Are you willing to forgive Congresswoman Taylor Greene? Forgive for what? No, I just disagreed with her philosophy. She started back in...
You called her a fucking traitor.
Perhaps the worst Republican congressman in our history. This stupid person named Massey. And I said, go your own way. And once I left her, she resigned because she would never have survived a primary. But I think she's a nice person. Are you willing to forgive Congresswoman?
All right, here we go. Witkoff.
Breaking news, a leaked
Witkoff coached a Russian aide in how to have Putin manipulate Trump.
transcript of a call between Trump envoy Steve Witkoff and one of Putin's top aides. Witkoff, a real estate lawyer, according to a transcript published by Bloomberg, is quoted advising a senior Kremlin aide last month about how to strike a deal with Trump. And he urges the aide to praise Trump on his Gaza deal as a way to curry favor and get Trump on board. Here's the quote from Witkoff. He says, just reiterate that.
What has everybody around the world been saying? All you got to do is stroke his fucking ego, and he'll do anything you want. Just reiterate that you congratulate the president on this achievement, that you supported it, that you respect that he is a man of peace, and you're really glad to have seen it happen.
That you congratulate the president on this achievement, that you supported it, that you respect that he is a man of peace, and you're really glad to have seen it happen. Putin's aide replies to Witkoff.
Everybody kept wondering why we got that shitty fucking peace deal, and then they tried to backpedal and say, oh, that's just Russia's wish list. That's what Rubio's telling senators now, which is bullshit, right? Trump basically said, I'm going to send it to them. They're either going to sign it or we're going to back out, talking about Ukraine.
I agree with you that he will congratulate. He will say that Mr. Trump is a real peace man and so. Well, that's exactly what happened. Putin called Trump 2 days later. That's the day they spoke for 2.5 hours, if you remember. And Trump called that conversation very productive. Well, the following day, Zelensky visited the White House, and that had been sort of set up in the anticipation that Trump was going to provide Ukraine those longer-range missiles. Well, that could hit Moscow. But after the call with Putin, Zelensky shows up, and boom, no. Request denied. Republican Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick, seeing all of these transcripts, tweeting, quote, this is a major problem, and one of the many reasons why these ridiculous sideshows and secret meetings need to stop. Allow Secretary of State Marco Rubio to do his job in a fair and objective manner. Republican Congressman Don Bacon also posting, quote, it's clear Witkoff fully favors the Russians. He should be fired. Blunt words. It comes as Trump and Zelensky apparently now agree on some points of a possible peace deal. And guess who Trump has dispatched to meet with Putin to talk about it? Steve Witkoff. Out front now, Christo Grozev, investigative journalist who has been placed on Russia's wanted list. And Christo,
fucking insane, dude.
Appreciate your time tonight. So Russia says,
how is this the real world? How is this the real world? That Trump's top advisors are going behind his back and saying, oh, if you just tell him, congratulations, you're such a good guy. We love peace. We want to do peace too. He'll give you anything.
transcripts that Bloomberg has are fake. The White House is not denying their veracity. It simply says that the reporting proves Witkoff talks to officials every day to achieve peace. What's your reporting, Christo? I know you've got a lot of new information here.
Well, first of all, this is probably an unprecedented leak from my experience. I don't think we've ever seen a combination of two leaks. One is a call between Witkoff and Yuri Ushakov, the senior advisor to President Putin. But the other one is between two Russian officials, the Kirill Dmitriev, who's the unofficial negotiator on behalf of the Kremlin with the United States on all matters relating to peacemaking in Ukraine, and Ushakov, again, the top senior advisor to Putin. Now, what these two calls show to us is that there was, in fact, a collusion. I couldn't say it in any other way. I couldn't describe it with any other verb or adjective, but it's a colluding between the person who's supposed to represent the United States' interest in the negotiation and the Russian official in how to actually gaslight, how to manipulate the American president.
Yes, if our aide is telling any foreign government how to manipulate our president, What side is he on? He can't be on our side. It's one thing if he goes and he's like, look, Trump's all about peace. You know, that's what he wants to do. He's tired of this war. He doesn't want people to die. But if he's telling you how to manipulate our president because he's a goddamn child, he's not on our side.
Accepting deal terms that favor the Russian government only. That's kind of the nut and bolt of this of these two leaks. But equally, this sheds light on the origin story of these 28-point terms that were passed on and given as an ultimatum to the Ukrainian side a couple of days ago. They were presented as an American invention, as an American creation. But in fact, my own reporting earlier suggested this was a Russian boilerplate that was created 6 months ago or more, and essentially was just passed on to the United States to be presented as an American position to the Ukrainian government. And these calls actually confirm exactly that. We hear in these calls, we see in the transcripts that the Russians are talking between themselves whether or not the Americans will make even the smallest changes to this.
I just want let me jump in here because I want to read these parts. So you're talking about the peace plan, right? So Witkoff was trying to do everything he could to help the Kremlin get a peace plan out there. So Witkoff says in the transcript that Bloomberg's put out between Witkoff and the senior Russian negotiator, Witkoff says, you know, I have the deepest respect for President Putin. Maybe he says to President Trump, you know, Steve and Yuri discussed a very similar 20-point plan to peace, and I think, Yuri, the president will give me a lot of space and discretion to get to the deal. Now, that's extremely disturbing to read. But then, Christo, the call that you mentioned between the two Russian officials. This is, I don't want to say the cherry on the top because that implies something good, but this makes the point. The two Russian officials say to each other, I think we'll just make this paper from our position and let them do it like their own. But I don't think they'll take exactly our version, but at least it'll be as close to it as possible.
Remember when they said, oh, that's just a Russian wish list. No, you guys are crazy. I think we'll just make this paper from our position and let them do like their own. But I don't think they'll take exactly our version. Well, they did because Trump's retarded. But at least it'll be as close as possible. That's how we got that ridiculous 28-point fucking peace deal.
Possible. That is what your reporting said, Christo. And then you see this in black and white. This is incredible.
Correct. I need to correct a little bit the translation that Bloomberg published because the real translation of the Russian is let's give them our version and they'll pretend it's their own. They'll make it as if
they'll pretend it's their own. That's exactly right.
It's their own. And these are really disturbing words. And they essentially confirm my own finding, which is that much of what we saw in these 28 points reflects something that I saw, that I was read into 6 months ago by a Russian insider who told me this is what we plan to propose to the United States. So essentially we're seeing Steve Witkoff siding with something that is a Russian proposal, substantively a Russian proposal. Maybe there are a couple of these 28 points that were added later, but they don't reflect the core of a pro-Russian position. And trying to convince Trump to make him believe that it's his own. It's essentially gaslighting the American president. I don't see it any other way.
Well, I mean, there's other words that could be used in the context.
Way past normal. You're right.
I want to be careful with words we use in this context, but it's very disturbing. I am curious.
Everybody, Trump. So they run around bragging that they're the most open and honest and administration. You know what I mean? Like they brag about this all the time, but everybody has weird, shady, fucking secret messages and deals and accidentally texting and posting it to Twitter and. What the fuck? Transparent is the word I was looking for. They keep saying they're the most transparent administration ever, but everybody in the administration is a fucking sleazebag.
It's because, Christo, you've had this reporting. You've been saying this, right, that there was a Russian plan that matches this one. Now that these transcripts come out, this all becomes, disturbingly clear. Who do you think leaked these transcripts? How do you think they got them?
Well, what we can be sure is that it's not a U.S. leak. I cannot see any situation in which a U.S. entity such as the NSA would consider leaking this, considering that there's an American government official on the calls. But we have at least two other strong candidates for this leak. One is any
Ukraine.
European agency that would be disturbed by hearing this, that they would have been able to.
I hope Ukraine intercepted it and leaked it.
To see the danger of what they're hearing in case they were tapping this. And the second one would be an actual insider in the Kremlin, one of their intelligence services that are trying to torpedo the peace process or any semblance of the peace process. And there are many of those. But in terms of the feasibility of such a leak, let me just confirm that our previous reporting over 10 years, early in my career at Bellingcat and recently with the Insider and Spiegel, has found hundreds of cases in which government officials, Russian government officials in very sensitive positions are using regular telephone lines instead of encrypted messengers just because it's easier for them and they feel that there's impunity for what they're doing. And such regular telephone calls can be intercepted and
maybe they accidentally added somebody to the signal chat.
Decrypted by most European agencies. So it's either
oh no, that's just our retarded fucking leaders. My bad.
Or the Kremlin or inside of the Kremlin that leaked this, in my view.
All right. So Trump was just talking on Air Force One. He just went down to Florida for the Thanksgiving holiday, and he is saying that Russia's making big concessions in all of this. Here's what he just said. Name
a concession Russia's making. that they're going to write on paper that, oh, Ukraine's a real country now.
The big concession is they stop fighting and they don't take any more land.
What does it say to you that that's how the president of the United States defines a concession?
Again, I mean, now that we've seen the transcript, I have to give it.
He's retarded.
Maybe
I don't know what to tell you.
Completely irrational version of the
So their concession is that the war stops.
events of the universe from the person that he's tasked with giving him the best read of what the Russians feel about it. If that's coming from Steve Witkoff, maybe Trump really believes that. But in actual fact, none of the points that we saw in the 28-point proposal.
Russia is, I don't know why maggots do this. Why has Russia not taken over Ukraine already? Why are they not sitting in Kiev and it's part of the USSR right now? Right? It's part of Russia. Because they can't. They're not holding back as a bargaining chip. They're not setting their way. They can't. If they could, they would. So saying that, well, they're going to stop fighting and they're not going to take any more of Ukraine. That's not a concession. That's just the end of the war.
Present any concessions on behalf of Russia. All of that is for Russia. Even the one item that was included there that may have appeared to somebody reading it as a Russian compromise, which is the deployment of fighter jets in Poland to protect Ukraine. Even that most likely is something that the Russians insisted in order to prevent Ukraine from buying their own fighter jets from European providers, which is something that Russia has been very concerned about. So I do not see a single point that is a concession by Russia.
Christo, thank you very much. I'm grateful for your time.
Thank you.
We also had this coming out today. I don't know if you guys have already seen it, but
we're coming back for some brand new breaking news. MS Now has just learned that FBI Director Kash Patel may be out of a job in the coming months. 3 people with knowledge of the situation say President Trump and his top aides have grown tired of Patel and the unflattering headlines he's been generating recently, including using a government jet to visit his girlfriend and enlisting a SWAT team as her security detail. Joining us, MS Now Justice and Intelligence reporter Ken Delanian and MS Now White House reporter Laura Barone Lopez. Both of them broke this story along with Carol Leonnig. Ken, give me more.
Well, Katie, I should say, first of all the qualifiers apply here. With Donald Trump and personnel decisions, you never actually know exactly what's going on. But we are being told that Kash Patel, the FBI director, is on increasingly thin ice. And the president is considering replacing him by the end of the year with Andrew Bailey, the former Attorney General of Missouri, who is acting now as co-deputy FBI director, along with Dan Bongino. And it's for all the reasons that you just said and others, the use of taxpayer resources, the flying his girlfriend around on the FBI jet, but also the premature tweets, including related to the Charlie Kirk assassination and other investigations, that terrorist attack in Michigan where Patel got out in front of the investigation and tweeted about the arrest before the rest of the government was ready for that to happen. So Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche of the Justice Department have been annoyed with Patel for a long time, although they publicly denied it when others have reported it. And now it's increasingly clear that the White House is as well. Now, our reporting this may actually enhance his job security, right? So it's hard to know exactly what's going to happen, but that is the reporting at this hour, Katie.
Yeah, no, we have seen situations where when it comes out that somebody is being considered for removal in order to prove that that Donald Trump does not have any chaos on his team or in his cabinet, has come out and said, no, of course not, I'm not considering anything. Let me play the president a little bit earlier today talking about Kash Patel during the Turkey pardon.
FBI Director Kash Patel has been very busy doing a great job. Also, thank you, Kash.
Was that scripted? Was that always intended to be there, or was he responding to a question, Laura?
Look, I will say that right before we went out there for that Turkey pardon, I had asked the White House for comment on this story. And so because sources had been telling me, those that were talking to Carol and Ken were also telling us that essentially this ouster could be closer than ever. And part of that is because Andrew Bailey would now be able to take that role after reaching this 90-day requirement for being in that position. And so the White House had responded to me right before this event started. White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson, not denying it outright, not calling this false, but she did say that the FBI Director Patel is a critical member of the president's team and that he's working tirelessly to ensure the integrity of the FBI. That's what Abigail Jackson, the White House spokeswoman, said. And then after that, I went out there for the Turkey pardon into the Rose Garden, and I thought it was interesting that the president said, thanked him and said that he was doing a, quote, great job. And then there was some clapping, and the president said, see, Kash, you have a following. So was it scripted? That's the timing when it happened. But this appears...
Andrew Bailey is the guy they made co-director suddenly after... So Dan Bongino is... deputy director. They made Andrew Bailey also co-deputy director.
Closer than it's ever been before, because of course sources close to the White House have told me that they've definitely heard grumblings about Patel for all the reasons that Ken laid out. But this time around, more because of the back-to-back bad headlines about Patel's use of government resources, seems to really be pushing those around the president and allies to the edge when it comes to Patel, Katie.
Yeah, what's interesting, Ken, is if we think about the first administration and when cabinet members...
Here's what happens. I do this too. when it seems like everything's going wrong, when Trump's catching all this bad press from Marjorie Taylor Greene and the Epstein files and the Obamacare subsidies and the shutdown, and then it seems like every little thing, like, why the fuck is that person doing that right now? Like, when all my shit's going wrong and it's like my own fault, like at work, everything's going wrong, I'm fucking pissed or whatever, and then Mariah comes and tells me like the smallest thing that normally wouldn't be a big issue, right? I'd be like, fuck it, I don't care. I flip the fuck out. So when Trump's having all this negative shit thrown at him and all this negative media and all this negative attention, then the smallest story breaks about fucking goddamn cross-eyed Kash Patel. He's like, what the fuck is he doing? It's so much bigger now. When if everything was going good, it would probably roll right under the bus and they wouldn't notice. It would be it'd be a blurb like, we don't believe the leftist commies know about how Kash Patel uses his jet or something.
Had been ousted. A lot of them had been accused of mishandling or misusing government funds, misusing government planes. The
reason that I think Kash Patel obviously has to fly on, the FBI jet when he travels or whatever. The only reason that I think this is an issue is because he's such a goddamn hypocrite. Congress mandates that when they travel, they have to go by government jet. So what they're supposed to do is travel less often, right? You wouldn't fly out just to see your girlfriend sing the national anthem at a goddamn college wrestling event. But instead he does. But he was the one attacking every other FBI director every time they flew somewhere. Every fucking time. Then when Congress asked him about it, he says, oh, well, Congress makes us do that. Well, then why were you attacking every other FBI director, you fucking retard?
Of corruption, and I guess this would fall into the same category. If you're talking about the SWAT team and the using the private jet, at the very least, just a misuse or an unseemly use of government property.
Yes, and the SWAT team reference, just to make sure our viewers understand, goes back to our reporting that members of the SWAT team in Nashville have been deployed as a security detail for Kash Patel's country singer girlfriend who lives in Nashville. And the New York Times has reported that other SWAT details from other cities have also been enlisted in that cause. What's also interesting, and you're absolutely right, Katie, that those kinds of things, Donald Trump has a track record of looking on with distaste and disdain. But what's also interesting is that Kash Patel is under fire from MAGA activists for things that probably our viewers are not paying attention to. There's a series of conspiracy theories, for example, about the January 6th pipe bombs. That case remains unsolved. A lot of people in the MAGA world have these unfounded beliefs that somehow the government was involved, that the FBI is covering up, and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino have not been as forthcoming as these people would like about that case, so they're mad about that. They're also angry the other day when they essentially leaked the story to Fox News, or did an interview with Fox News, and laid out their findings in the assassination plot against Donald Trump, and essentially said the guy acted alone, there's no larger conspiracy. That runs against a lot of conspiracy theories that are percolating in MAGA world right now, and so it's a really interesting dichotomy you have. So every current and former FBI agent I've ever talked to has absolute disdain for the way Kash Patel is running.
I don't think Russia does not often violate Polish airspace. Polish people are chomping at the bit. That's why it was such a big deal when they violated their airspace with that drone. And they scrambled 16 F-16s, and then 2 other countries mobilized F-35s. Poland's the only country that is just begging to be in a war with Russia.
The Bureau, but then you also have the MAGA right that's not happy with Kash Patel.
And Laura, who's Andrew Bailey? Give us a little bit more on him.
Well, Andrew Bailey, as Ken was laying out, used to be the Missouri Attorney General. He was brought in because of the fact that those inside the White House, those inside the FBI were not happy, which, as Ken has documented very well, were not happy with Dan Bongino. And Bongino was very upset and rebelling a bit over the handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files over the summer.
So Bongino's not going to get that director position.
And Bailey was brought in.
It's going to be Andrew Bailey. Basically, Bongino, because he brought up the Epstein stuff so much on social media and in private, they actually took his job away from him without firing him and gave it to a co-deputy director.
Co-deputy director, of the FBI, which is, as Ken was explaining, this position that is not normal. He's someone, according to...
I think it's funny. I think it's very funny that when it was revealed who Kash Patel's girlfriend was, even MAGA was like, there's no way. Like, she is an Israeli honeypot. There is no fucking way he pulled that piece of ass looking off in 2 goddamn different coordinates, right? Motherfucker looks in 2 different zip codes, just staring out from the podium. There's no goddamn way his dumb ass pulled that.
The sources that I talked to this week, that so far the administration seems happy with, and that and that lawmakers like, and so generally speaking, he hasn't really ruffled any feathers so far with those around the president and with those across the administration. Katie.
All right, Laura Barone Lopez, Ken Delaney, and thank you very much for bringing us that breaking news. Appreciate it.
All right. I want to see what this is because I don't know. It's something about Campbell's soup.
Media covers this kind of stuff up. We need a lot more independent media to show you amazing examples like this of what they actually think about their own product.
I disagree with you entirely.
Yeah, for poor people. Who buys their I don't buy Campbell's products barely anymore. It's healthy. Now that I know what the in it. Even in a can of soup, I look at it, look at me, bioengineered meat. I don't want to eat a piece of chicken that came from a 3D printer. You
Definitely do not want to eat a piece of chicken that came from a 3D printer, but the voice that you heard in that audio is Campbell's Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer, Martin Bally, and his honest opinion about the products that his company sells and the customers he sells them to. So we'll hear even more of his comments, but first, Cenk, your 2 cents?
Yeah, look, guys, this is a great example of what corporations are up to when you're not looking, which is almost all the time. And part of the reason is, sorry, broken record, corporate media covers this kind of stuff up. We need a lot more independent media to show you amazing examples like this of what they actually think about their own product.
I disagree with you entirely. Okay, I don't think media has any impact on this whatsoever. I think that there's been extensive reporting on the absolute slop the American people are fed by these deregulated corporations. There's been endless reporting about how our FDA has been corrupted by moneyed interests. There's been endless reporting on the USDA and some of the poor decisions they've made, and how our government does a poor job representing us. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because we don't live in a healthy democratic system. And anyone's going to write to me and say, oh, we're actually a constitutional republic. You know what I mean? Okay, we live in a democratic system in which we vote for people who are supposed to represent us. That's what I'm talking about. They don't care about us. And the reason why they don't care about us is because we have bribery baked into our political system. And so they're always going to look out for their donors. They don't care about us.
But Anna, so like I hear you.
It's like for you, it's always the media.
But Anna, why? Hold on.
Okay.
So I hear you, and you're making a really great.
Campbell's execs caught trashing companies' food and customers.
Okay, but what is the missing link in that media story?
What do you think is going to happen if the media does more reporting on this? We just.
I know it's
the
gonna
New York Times literally just reported on Huckabee meeting with a traitor to the United States, and nothing happened. Nothing ever happened.
And why did nothing happen?
Because our government doesn't care about us, Cenk.
Exactly. But there's a second missing link, Anna, which is what did the rest of the media then pile onto that Huckabee story? No, corporate media said we're not going to talk about that story. Now it could deeply embarrass Trump, and they love embarrassing Trump. But if it's about Israel, no, that's it. We're not going to do it. Now related to this story,
everyone's talking about this.
Okay,
everyone's talking.
Okay, everybody's talking about this. Yeah. And when we go to regulate Campbell's soup, as you're going to see, it definitely needs regulation. When you see the story, what is corporate media going to say? It's overregulation. And we're going to say, hey, no, but these guys are paying off the politicians. They're going to say, oh, that sounds conspiratorial. The donors don't have that much power. It's just a little bit of influence, but it's not that big a deal. They cover up the most important part, that our politicians are corrupt because they work for these corporations. And the corporate media says, no, they don't. No, you guys are all imagining it, and they gaslight you. No, of course they work for them. Otherwise, we go, what the hell kind of junk are you feeding us? Literally. So let's tell them the junk that they're feeding us.
So the audio was released as part of a lawsuit, an employment discrimination and retaliation lawsuit that was brought up by a former security analyst for Campbell's Soup Company. The former employee's name is Robert Garza. Now, according to Newsweek, the lawsuit indicates, and interviews Garza gave to local media indicate, the claims stem from a recorded meeting between Garza and Campbell's Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer Martin Bally. Garza, who began working remotely for the company in September of 2024, said he met Bally at a restaurant in late 2024, believing they would be discussing his salary. Now, Garza says that he started recording the meeting because he had an instinct that something wasn't right with Martin. Now, since the case, by the way, is being brought up in Michigan, the recording is illegal since it's a one-party consent state. You don't need consent from both parties to record. I just want to get that out of the way. Now, Garza's gut instinct was right because within a few minutes, Martin Bally went off. Garza alleges the executive delivered an hour-long tirade criticizing the company's products, disparaging employees and customers, and making racially offensive remarks about Indian colleagues. The recording also allegedly captured Bally admitting to work after consuming marijuana edibles, which I don't care about at all. I'm just going to be clear about that. Now, the recording, which lasted longer than an hour and 15 minutes, included what Garza said was a disgusting rant alleged to be made by Bally about his coworkers. Effing Indians don't know effing thing. I'm quoting, by the way, what Bally said. And like they couldn't think for their effing selves, it said in part. Garza also said that he kept the audio to himself for a few months to process things. Then he went to his manager in January to report Bally's behavior, but he ended up getting terminated from his position 20 days after reporting the matter, an action that Garza believes was meant to silence him. Now, Garza also told reporters that the recording, or that he received no follow-up from Human Resources after submitting the complaint. The lawsuit accuses Campbell's Soup Company of maintaining a racially hostile work environment and retaliating against Garza for reporting discriminatory conduct. It asserts claims of employment discrimination and race-based retaliation under Michigan law. So, there's other examples of what was said. So he had no record, Garza had no record of prior disciplinary action. I should note that as well. So his firing was obviously retaliation based on what we know. There might be other information that we're not privy to at the moment. So Campbell's has since put Bally on temporary leave with a spokesperson saying that if the recording is legitimate, the comments are unacceptable. They do not reflect our values and the culture of our company. Mr. Bally is temporarily on leave while we conduct an investigation. We are proud of the food we make, the people who make it, and the high quality ingredients we use. The comments on the recording are not only inaccurate, they are patently absurd.
So they say that their chicken is not printed with a 3D printer.
Yeah, he didn't mean it literally, and we all know that. His main point was the food is inedible. It is mystery meat, and we feed it to poor people because they don't have a choice, and I would never eat that stuff. So that's what he's saying. We heard it on the tape, right? And that is not ridiculous. That is true.
Yep.
And that is why they're panicking over this story. So now now we all know, and look, the part about his Indian coworkers is terrible. If you're Indian and this guy apparently hates you and doesn't respect you at all based on your race, you'd be deeply bothered by that, right? So that's something that needs to be addressed and is a significant issue. But the bigger issue for the whole country is these companies are putting absolute junk in the food, and our country and our government is doing nothing to protect us. And so Make America Healthy Again came about because people were worried about that. The processed foods, the high fructose corn syrup, etc., right? That's actually not a bad development. And then RFK Jr. becomes the head of Health and Human Services. Did he address any of that so far? Nope. Instead, rando things about autism and Tylenol and a bag of squirrels. Okay,
adding or loosening restrictions on PFAS in the food supply, all sorts of issues with pesticides being reintroduced to our food supply. I mean, what happened?
So does RFK Jr. want to actually address those issues?
No, obviously not.
Well, look, based on his history, I can see that he did. But now he gets into power, and all of a sudden he doesn't do it. So even if you believe that in his heart RFK Jr. really wants to fight those issues, for us on those issues, why isn't he doing it? Corporate power. We all know that, right? In fact, he suggested something about food processing and how it was problematic, and immediately the Trump administration told him to shut up and never bring that up again, and he's never brought it up again. And instead you have these squirrels running around. Why? Because of overwhelming corporate power. Why do they have that power? What is it? That's the last link that they don't break down for you. It's the bribery. They literally pay the politicians, not just Trump and Biden, but almost all of Congress, and they go, make sure that you allow us to poison the American people, and here's a check to do that, Mr. Corrupt dirtbag politician. Okay, and remember, don't eat our food. Okay, it's toxic, it's terrible, it's for the poors and the middle class Americans, right?
That's all of us, by the way.
Yeah. Now, the elites don't eat that, so you don't have to worry about it, and here's your check. And then media, in my opinion, comes around and goes, oh, no. Of course, that's just them having a conversation. It doesn't influence the politicians at all. They just happen to think that junk in the food is great for America. That's their honest opinion. They had a debate over it. No, they didn't. What did Adam Smith tell us? He said, we have to do regulations in order for capitalism to survive. If you don't do regulations, monopolies take over, and corporate rule takes over, and it destroys capitalism. And that's what's happening right now, and our politicians are participating and literally feeding us this pile of junk so that they can get richer.
Yeah, no.
It is crazy to think like what's in these food, where these companies are all about, like, literally they have a responsibility to make the most possible, as much money as they possibly can for their investors. They're not looking out for you. They're not looking out for me. They just want to not get in trouble and put out some cheap shit to make the most money.
Well, that's exactly right. I think I'm just sick of nothing changing and everything getting worse. And
but what's the alternative, right? We can't make everything at fucking home. You know what I mean? Like, it's damn near impossible.
I don't want this, but honestly, with things going the way that they're going,
and I freak out just over like the amount of microplastics that's in everybody's fucking body. Not that I can do anything about it, but it's just fucking wild to think about.
End game is going to be an actual violent uprising, and I don't want that. I don't want that. But the more Americans feel neglected by our political system and the very people they elect to represent them in their best interest, the more we're fed poison and slop by these corporations. There was another outbreak of botulism cases involving baby formula. Another breakout. Another one. We're talking about baby formula. This doesn't happen, at least not with the same frequency, in other countries. We're supposed to be the richest country in the world. Look at the way we're living. Look at the way Americans are treated by corporations and their own government.
You know, in other countries, they have signs like saying no American meat, so you can rest assured. You can trust our restaurant. Now, why do they have that sign? Because they want to just insult America for no reason? No, they actually are worried about our meat because we don't properly vet our meat. Our Food and Drug Administration has been totally bought by corporate power. So we've been on the air forever. We're the longest running show in online history, right? So I remember covering the stories during mad cow disease when the meat industry would literally stand up cows that fell down from mad cow disease and push them through
5 days ago. Infant botulism outbreak linked to infant formula.
The assembly line to make an extra, what, $5, $50 from that particular cow, but it's going to poison the American people, and by the way, then be so counterproductive because then it's going to shut down a lot of things, right? But they think, no, greed and endless greed, and they have this enormous confidence, and they're not wrong about this. Oh, don't worry, we'll just pay the politicians to cover it up.
And they will, and they will, and they do.
And that's what's happening. And I'll give you one last example to give you how comprehensive corporate politicians and corporate media work together to do this to us. Archer Daniel Midland is an agriculture company. They sell nothing to the average American, yet they would pay $1 million a year to the Sunday talk shows to sponsor them. I always found that strange, right? And sometimes defense contractors do the same thing, even though they also sell nothing to the public. The reason they do that is to purchase the media, the hosts. So that way the hosts never talk about the corn subsidies. The corn subsidies is...
That absolutely is not true. The first ingredient listed is the ingredient that is the most in it, and it's definitely not sugar.
A disaster for this country. Why? Because it leads to an incentive to create high fructose corn syrup. What's Mexican Coke? It's just old school Coke. It's not Mexican. It's what we used to produce in Atlanta, right? But we don't produce it anymore. Instead of sugar, we use high fructose corn syrup, which is way worse for us. And one of the reasons why this country is way more obese than other countries. But because of the subsidies, they got to do that. But yet none of the Sunday talk shows for all those decades ever talked about the corn subsidies. Why? Because they had been bribed by Archer Daniels Midland to the tune of $1 million a year to not talk about it. Same thing for Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and all the defense contractors. They bought the media and the politicians, and they had this country on lockdown. That's why I love these populist woods that we're in. Because now we're doing online shows that do not listen to that junk and that tell you the truth, and we're battering corporate media, and we have begun to batter corporate politicians, which is nearly 98% of them. Go in the primaries, vote against almost all the incumbents. They have betrayed you, and they work for corporate rule and not for you. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.
Damn. Thank you guys for joining us. It's I lost track of time. It's 2 a.m. But thank you all for joining us. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I can't get past the RFK poem. Anyways, if you want to, do you think Trump can suck a golf ball through a straw? Probably. The best blowjobs. I'm sure he would try if you complimented him enough. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for being here. Support the stream if you want to. There's a link floating around. I think I still got it. Hold on. There it is. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Support the show. That's how I pay the bills. Keep the show going. I'll probably be back tomorrow. I know we got the holidays coming up, so we have to see about that. I've also got a weird side job coming up, but I don't think it's on a weekend, so that should be fun. Anyways, thank you all for being here. Thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. I'll see you around the next one. Have a good night. Love you. See you. Bye. I hope he chokes on a fucking golf ball. To be honest with you.
If this douchebag happens to see this particular show, you don't have the forking balls to call out the people on this planet by name and tell them exactly who they are and tell them the rest of the world who they are. You don't have the forking balls.
I like to see him and JD Vance choke on the same golf ball.
Okay, Scott. Here we go. I think I started some shit. Listen off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. And they say that I'm a lunatic. Well listen, bitch, I came equipped with a quick wit and a 6th sense for the stupid shit. Where my true believer? Y'all need Jesus. Praise the Lord, head to the extreme. All these false fucking prophets who profit off of gossip. Worshipping drums, cocking, begging for a throat deposit. Swinging fucking meat hammers like four in a thong. He's strapped to the shaft, beating his chest like he's King Kong. Starving for attention, I'ma make your gut burst. I'll be your huckleberry, I can quench that thirst. Baby eating lizard people, alien sex. What's next? Trump in a dress, fucking Flynn on his desk. A retard in a vest, climbing up 5G towers. Cause you told him if he did, he'd get fucking superpowers. Here we go, I think I started some shit.
I think the confusion about all the sugar being in baby formula is because it has corn syrup, but corn syrup is not the same as high fructose corn syrup, which is a sugar alternative. Corn syrup is added because it mimics breast milk and helps babies put on weight. It's got a very specific ratio of carbohydrates, protein, and fat. But people see corn syrup and they confuse it with high fructose corn syrup. But yeah, I think that's the confusion.
Put on a light coat of baby oil and saluted the troops. He tapped me on the shoulder and said, "This is gonna be it." Whoa.
You're not allowed to talk. You're still in China, communist China, and we haven't rescued you yet at Suko. So just be quiet.
Come on, seriously. My mom's an alcoholic. Oh, give me a. Oh my God. Damn it. Here we go. I think I started some shit. Piss them off. It's about to get lit. Get the place.
Is that guy George from the Jungle in it?
You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Here we go. I think I started some shit. Piss them off. It's about to get lit. Get the place in the best. You know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Round 3. Down goes Nino. Please say it isn't so. Got him back to
Have a good night, guys. Support the show. Freeloaders.
Doing so